want to get down to business. And so at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Megan Medina. She is one of our new community council members, and she will take it from here. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome. My name is Megan Medina, and on behalf of the Eastwood Community Council, we welcome you all to Eastwood Elementary. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to foster meaningful collaboration between Granite School District, the Board of Education, and the Eastwood community as we continue the conversation around the PAC study. Thank you to our district and our school board representatives for taking the time to meet with us this evening. And thank you to all in our community for showing your support by being here tonight. Woo! Our goal for this meeting is twofold. First, to share what makes Eastwood such an exceptional and valued school community. And second, to present thoughtful alternatives to the current PAC recommendation. This evening also provides an opportunity for the district to share additional information and address outstanding questions from the community. Here's how our time together will unfold. We will begin with a brief recap of the PAC recommendation from our Community Council Chair, Brian Stout. Then members of the Eastwood community will present additional context, candid perspectives, and outline possible alternative solutions. Following that, Steve Hogan will share new information from the district, and I will wrap up the presentation time with a discussion on potential next steps. Finally, we'll conclude with prepared questions, after which Mr. Hogan has graciously agreed to remain for an open Q&A session. Throughout the meeting, I'll help manage the timing of each segment, so if you're a praying person, pray for me. We're gonna need it. And I kindly ask that all presenters stay within the timeframes that we've established. More importantly, I hope we all approach this conversation with open minds and a shared commitment to what is best for our kids. The passion, care, and dedication of this community are clear, and we believe that by working together, we can find solutions that serve our students, our families, and our future. Ultimately, we all share the same goal: ensuring the best possible educational outcomes for our children and strengthening the communities that support them. Thank you for being here and for your willingness to engage in this important conversation. It is now my pleasure to invite Brian Stout to the podium to provide a brief recap of the PAC recommendation for Eastwood Elementary.
Hello everyone, thank you for coming out tonight. As discussed, I'm going to provide just a brief recap for those of you who may just be walking into this discussion for the first time, and you're just maybe just for the first time hearing that there's a recommendation to close the Eastwood school, so I'm going to provide just a brief summary of what's going on here. So what's happening with Eastwood? On September 2nd, the Granite School District provided a recommendation to close Eastwood at the end of the school year and to send the students to Oak Ridge beginning in the next school year. Other nearby schools, including Morningside, were also impacted in this district's recommendation on September 2nd. What are the reasons for closing Eastwood potentially and impacting these schools? The Granite School District has found that declining student enrollment, I'll provide some context. So there's a statewide trend right now where there's declining student enrollment across the state. The Granite School District has found that declining student enrollment creates scarcity of resources and opportunities for students and teachers. Anecdotally, I'll add this may include split grade classrooms, among other potential issues. The Granite School District has also found that optimizing student enrollment creates more abundant resources and opportunities for students and teachers. And I'll just add anecdotally that this may include closing schools and combining student populations, among other potential solutions. So now we will hear from the Eastwood community a proposal to the Granite School District. And this will come, again, directly from the Eastwood community, so we believe this is a very insightful opportunity for the Granite School District Board. And without further ado, I turn it over to Tara, another school community council member.
And I'm a student at Eastwood.
I'm a student at Eastwood. One of the students from Eastwood Elementary.
I'm a librarian here, but I have been a parent here since 2013.
As former Eastwood student,
Eastwood parent.
I was a student at Eastwood from preschool to 5th grade.
I am a mom of one Eastwood graduate, a 5th grader at Eastwood, and I have a daughter who's supposed to start kindergarten at Eastwood next year.
I was a former student at Eastwood.
I'm a parent of an Eastwood student.
I am a Eastwood alumni student and a parent of an Eastwood child.
I went to Eastwood Elementary.
I am Eastwood alumni.
What makes Eastwood special?
Eastwood is special.
I love Eastwood because
The thing I think is special about Eastwood Elementary.
Eastwood Elementary is special because
I love Eastwood because
I think what makes Eastwood special.
What I love about Eastwood,
why I love Eastwood is because
I love Eastwood for
I like Eastwood because
Eastwood's very special because
I think it's so special about Eastwood Elementary.
Eastwood makes me feel special. Eastwood Elementary is so special.
Eastwood is special because
Eastwood is special because it's
Special in our lives because we know that our kids can get there safely, come home safely.
it is a community that cares. We care about children here. And it's important to keep this alive.
Is that it's a family. I don't think it just feels like a family. I think it truly is a family where people really care about each other.
And the community that they have built over the years.
And then community.
because it's a generational school that builds a foundation in the community and leaves an imprint on kids for generations to come.
Eastwood is a cornerstone of our community.
All the teachers made it feel very welcoming, like a big community.
it really creates this feeling of belonging.
Come and see Eastwood as a community and you'll feel it in the air.
When you come back as a junior high school student or a high schooler or an adult, I want you to feel when you're coming back to home. People that care properly.
It's where me and my friends go to hang out, and it's a really good school.
everyone is so kind and loving, and they care about each student.
It's because it has so many memories here. It's the same memories that I once did.
It's an amazing school for our children.
go to school with all of our neighborhood friends.
Yeah, lots of friends, and playgrounds, and some good lunch.
And great teachers.
The teachers
And good teachers. Every adult that's in that school, whether they're a staff member or teacher or just another parent, takes care of every student in that school.
I love the teachers there. The teachers are beautiful. It's because one of the secretaries here.
Quality teachers, dedicated staff, office staff, knew every child by name.
The teachers are very nice.
It's caring teachers and staff. We love Eastwood. The teachers are so nice. Fun and it's just a good place.
we get to do a lot of fun things in class.
Here we do these things called art cards. So we make these little cards, and then it's really, really fun. Another thing I think that is cool about Eastwood is that every year we do this thing called Dance Fest. Each grade we practice a dance. And then at the very end of the year, we put on that dance for the parents, students, family members, anyone you want to see it. And it's really, really fun. It's really fun. Eastwood's a really fun and special place. It makes kids feel happy.
Eastwood is one of the top schools in the state, as well as the highest ranking in Granite for numeracy and literacy. We are also a gold STEM school.
And you know that they're going to get a great education. It's one of the top 10 schools in the state. It's a gold STEM program.
Many great programs to offer, like Little League, Girls on the Run, and Student Council.
It's a safe school.
It's a welcoming and safe environment for my children.
They're safe. It makes kids feel happy, and it makes me feel safe. So that it can help nourish kids' childhoods.
and a really special school. We love it, and we hope that the district will realize that shutting it down is a huge mistake for our children and for the entire community.
Eastwood is a happy place where you don't get hurt.
We love Eastwood.
I like Eastwood.
I really love Eastwood because we soar.
Okay, tonight we are going to show you in detail that when you compare any objective criteria in a head-to-head analysis between Eastwood and Oak Ridge, Eastwood wins. Hands down. We win in statewide ranking, number of special programs, number of GT certified teachers, student attrition, attendance, teacher retention. Thank you, Eastwood teachers. Centrality, or time to bus, capacity, out-of-district students, ADA accessibility, utilization, most susceptible to out-of-district competition, and median home sales price. Let's get into it.
Eastwood excels. We are a top 10 elementary school in Utah. We are number 3 in Granite School District, and we are ranked at number 12th for reading and 11th for math, and our growth score is exemplary. I have a hard time with that word, sorry. So not only is Eastwood a Utah STEM designated school, we are a gold STEM school. And Eastwood is one of only 4 elementary schools in Utah with this honorable distinction. Over the past 7 to 8 years, Eastwood has partnered with teachers, 3 administrations, parents, the PTA, and multiple community councils to achieve recognition in STEAM education. We've gone from earning bronze, then silver, and now gold STEM school designation from the Utah Action Center. This designation reflects years of investment in a comprehensive STEAM learning environment that prepares students for college and career readiness while strengthening ties with community partners. And this also serves as a public signal that Eastwood is a leader in STEM education in Granite. And with this designation does not, cannot, and will not transfer according to the Utah STEM Action Center. And we spoke directly with the director, and she did confirm that it would not transfer to Oak Ridge and not have to be reapplied for. Brian, here.
Thanks, Anastasia. Attrition graph between Eastwood and Oak Ridge. So I'll read some statistics, some stats about this. So Eastwood has lost only 34 students total over the last 7 years after the 6th grade change impact. This is averaging less than 2% enrollment decline year after year. The district average is also 2% year over year. Oak Ridge, on the other hand, has lost the same number of students, 34, in the last year alone. Over the same 7-year period, Oak Ridge's total decline was 190 students, which represents a 45% enrollment drop. This isn't to criticize Oak Ridge, it is to highlight a risk. If we move students from a low attrition environment to a higher attrition one without a clear plan, we may unintentionally accelerate the very enrollment decline we're trying to solve. And push more families into charters or out of the district entirely. We call for an Oak Ridge attrition stabilization plan, or at least a study to determine feasibility in tackling this attrition anomaly. I will also anecdotally note there at the end here that we do know of a handful of families who have moved to adjacent schools this year pending a final Eastwood decision. Otherwise, we would expect that final Eastwood figure to be relatively stable. On another note, regarding attendance, in the spring of this last year, Eastwood has topped the charts in the Granite School District for attendance in 2 quarters of 4 quarters last year. And additionally, per teacher retention, in the last 12 years, per our teacher recollection, no teacher has left Eastwood aside from retirement, surplus, or moving out of state. And so per an earlier stat, Eastwood has maintained a 68% faculty retention relative to 48% retention at nearby schools. Our students and teachers feel they belong here, and we're proud of that. And now Tara will read several anomalized statements from our current Eastwood teachers.
Okay, earlier you watched that darling video of what parents and students love about Eastwood, and now it feels only right that you hear about our teachers. I can't read all of this because we just don't have the time, so I'm just going to pick a couple and enjoy. I chose Eastwood because before I came here, I heard nothing but amazing things. I remember coming to interview and I wanted nothing more than to have this view every single day. Then, once I met the faculty, I knew why no one ever leaves this place. I knew why when there were job openings, they were never at Eastwood, because no one leaves. I soon found out this place is a diamond in the rough. Everyone genuinely cares about everyone. I've never been somewhere where if you are gone for even half a day, everyone wants to make sure you are okay. Everyone works lots of O's, so well together. No one wants to let anyone else down, so we always push to put our best foot forward because every single kid here is our kid. I can't leave this place because genuinely, it is a literal diamond. I have taught for quite some time and I have never felt the camaraderie and sense of belonging that Eastwood has. It is just different. You feel it when you come here, whether you are a parent, a district employee, or a community member. You just feel it. Okay, just one more. I love Eastwood Elementary and have remained here for many reasons. This is the 3rd elementary school I've taught at, and can honestly say the sense of community here is the most inclusive and warmest I've ever experienced. The people I work alongside, dedicated, highly qualified teachers and staff, are truly inspiring, demonstrate incredible work ethics and a genuine passion for our students' success. I deeply believe this community trusts teachers and truly values our expertise, which fosters a supportive and collaborative environment. Working with families here has been incredibly rewarding, resulting in meaningful, productive relationships that benefit our students immensely. We boast a large and active group of parent volunteers who have woven this community even closer. It's heartwarming to see students recognize and know their parent volunteers by name, both inside and outside of school, exemplifying the special bond we share. Eastwood is truly a gem, a place that inspires a deep love for what we do.
Centrality. Eastwood is definitely the most central. It is most central geographically, as you can see from this map, which is not the map that's been used for most of the PAC study. And it's also practically central. It is closer to the freeway, it's closer to where people go for after-school activities, it's closer to people on their way to work. It is the most central location, and it's certainly most central for Immigration Canyon, which is where I live. And we are not a bunch of outliers, as we have been referred to throughout this study. I know I've made this point probably 1,000 times at this point, but even adding 15 minutes to the time to get to another school, slide, will have a significant impact on not just the Eastwood Elementary students, but the Churchill and Skyline students that share a bus up Immigration Canyon. Right now, the first kid that gets picked up in the day is 6:10 in the morning. If we add the 15 minutes for them to go, an extra 15 minutes to Oak Ridge, that's 30 minutes each way. They'll be picking up the bus at 5:40 a.m. in the morning. That is ridiculous. That is not fair. That is not fair for our community. We talked previously about the lack of safe routes, and I hope all of you saw the 165 parents that showed up last Friday to walk the routes. This is a picture from this walk. This is what our students will be walking up against, okay? And we acknowledge, and we've heard when we raised this issue before, we've been dismissed saying, oh, well, there are unsafe routes everywhere. We get it, we know that we've been lucky to not have these dangerous routes in our school before, and we acknowledge that there are some students that don't have an option. But we shouldn't say, oh, just because our kids have unsafe routes, your kids should have unsafe routes too. Our goal should be to make safe routes for everyone. And we shouldn't callously put kids in harm's way if we can avoid it. Now, you should know that it is not possible to make this route safe. In other schools, there are ways that you can with cross guards, with slower speed limits, but we can't make Wasatch Boulevard a 20-mile-per-hour zone for 2 miles in the morning when everybody's trying to get to work. We can't put crosswalks on the 5 business crossings that they would have to cross to get to Oak Ridge. And Jupiter, the Jupiter Walk, has several blind curves and dangerous intersections without sidewalks. We can't put sidewalks in the entire Olympus Cove area. There is not a way to make these routes safe, and we should not be asking our children to walk those routes every single day. At the last meeting, the solution that the district proposed to these unsafe routes was, oh, well, we'll get a bus and we'll make a courtesy bus available. But this was not a well thought out plan. There are 136 kids in the Eastwood boundary, excluding the kids from Immigration Canyon, which already have a hazardous bus route. The bus capacity is 84. That means that you would need 2 additional buses to bus the kids from Eastwood to Oak Ridge, and you would also need a 3rd bus to help with the problem in Immigration Canyon. 3 buses at $220,000 a year is $660,000 and would eliminate any cost savings that was gained from closing their schools. The other issue. When we asked about how they plan to get a bus to Oak Ridge, which is a non-busing school, and where buses cannot get into the school, we were told, oh, well, it's going to go in through this other route, and they showed us the route. Well, this is the picture of the route. The bus can't go in the entrance, so the suggestion is that they go in the opposite direction of a one-way street. That is not a safe busing route. That's all I have for you.
Capacity was an element that the PAC study puts quite an emphasis on. These are the numbers from the school enrollment capacities webpage on the Granite District's website. As you can see, capacities for both Eastwood and Oak Ridge are 550. Also, you may note that the information has been updated for this school year, with Eastwood having a higher adjusted capacity score. I came across this information on September 15th, which was nearly 2 weeks after the September 2nd meeting when Mr. Hogan's proposal with contrasting numbers were presented. The webpage was indeed changed to justify the PAC recommendation as of September 29th, which now shows Eastwood with a capacity of 500 and Oak Ridge with a capacity of 550. You may also note that Eastwood is the only school whose capacity number was edited between those 2 dates. The information on the PAC website states that a building's true capacity is determined by many variables that are considered on a school-by-school basis. In addition, information I received from Mr. Hogan explains, for instance, is a large classroom being used for small group intervention when it could be used as a full classroom? At another school, we identified a large instruction area that could actually be used as 2 classrooms if we constructed a wall. So there are different variables. All the schools are built differently. According to an email from Mr. Hogan for the Area 5 PAC study, quote, "There are no special spreadsheets or blueprints involved on my end. As I mentioned, I may use a basic school-produced map to lead the discussion in a walkthrough with the principal, but those are a guide, not a document that is saved in a file. Every so often, I may keep a handwritten one in the file because it has extensive notes on it, but that was not the case in Area 5 because I was already very familiar with these schools and their capacities. So in other words, there is no additional information, data, or special calculations for any schools in the PAC-5 study. A parent from our community researched and spoke with a company that provides portable classrooms or reloads and was informed that Eastwood's property could easily house 6 reloads which could be driven up and delivered, while Oak Ridge's property would require a crane, adding expense, safety concerns, and the number that could be placed was difficult to determine. So without data manipulation, Oak Ridge and Eastwood have the same capacity, but Eastwood has more room to grow. Moving on. Moving on, in Mr. Hogan's proposal presentation, he gave, quote, "lack of ADA access in Eastwood cafeteria." While Eastwood was not updated with an elevator like Oak Ridge was 2 years ago, it does indeed have an outside ramp which is suitable for ADA access to the cafeteria, which has been used as such, as it must be an ADA accessible to be a public building. Furthermore, while Oak Ridge is on 2 levels, one could argue that Eastwood would be more easily accessible for ADA individuals, as all classrooms, like the library and activity room, are all on 1 level here at Eastwood. To me, it's extremely problematic that this easily changed concern is given so much weight and value from the PAC that it's more important than student achievement and student growth rates. FCI score is both outdated and inaccurate. Both Eastwood and Oak Ridge received an FCI score of 85% or more, meaning that 85% of the building was in need of repair. This was in 2017. The score was calculated 8 years ago. Eastwood has received a security remodel, refinished in 2022. It also improved the parking so that the bus could go all the way through without backing up, which is a safety concern. It is irresponsible to use data that is 8 years old and is also knowingly based on a physical building that hasn't changed. Use of this data will affect the educational landscape of hundreds of students.
Granite wants to attract out-of-district students. Eastwood already does that. Eastwood's location makes it a convenient option for commuters. Parents are able to get on and off the highway easily without having to get into traffic along Wasatch. Eastwood is a high-achieving school. There is a GT certified teacher in each grade. We are a Gold STEM school. Eastwood is one of 4 elementary schools in Utah with this designation and has been working for over 5 years to earn this status. It is not something that is easily or quickly accomplished. There are currently multiple after-school programs that service Eastwood and provide transportation from the school to their program. These include Camp Wildlife, the JCC, Champs, and Mount Olympus. Eastwood is closer to out-of-district options and therefore more susceptible to the competition. We recently conducted a poll of families and community members. These results have been ruled out as an emotional response to the PAC's recommendation. Let me repeat that. The district leadership has told us that these results mean nothing and are an emotional response. We strongly reject this notion and would urge the district to look at these results as a realistic view of what the potential closure of our school could mean for Granite. Parents don't have time to waste. These decisions are being made now. Early enrollment and applications for private and charter schools begin in the next 4 to 6 weeks. The conversations among families started long before the recommendation. This poll was not our first time thinking about or answering this question. You'll notice there that we took a poll and of 130 respondents, 61 responded saying that they would take their kids outside of the district. whether that's to a charter school, a private school, or to Salt Lake City Public Schools. Only 18 respondents said that they would send their child to Oak Ridge. There are other options available. Things parents are considering when making this decision. After-school childcare options are greatly reduced. There's only one program that will pick up at Oak Ridge. Parents who rely on after-school childcare that provides transportation will now only have one option. Emigration Canyon students' bus ride will significantly increase, as noted earlier. Out-of-district students choose Eastwood specifically for its academic standing, ease of access, faculty and staff, and community. Closing Eastwood could mean potentially losing these students. And there are other options for Granite families to consider. Canyon Road Academy gives preference to students within 2 miles, which includes a lot of Eastwood's boundaries. They estimate that there will be 12 available spots each year across 6 grades. This will likely impact or have a larger impact on children entering kindergarten, as they will be in the original pool and not trying to join an established class. There's also the option to move out of the district entirely. Salt Lake City Public Schools along Foothill and close to the border of the district are highly rated and convenient for Granite families. Eastwood is right on the border, making these very real options for parents. Schools like Beacon Heights, Indian Hills, Bonneville, and Uinta have said that they have space available for Eastwood families and are excited to welcome new students.
A licensed real estate agent and Eastwood alumna, Heather Walsh Shelley, has studied the MLS data from the past several quarters. The evidence is clear. Homes within Eastwood's boundary are significantly more affordable than those in Oak Ridge, even when Emigration Canyon sales are included. And affordability matters. It means young families can actually move here. They can buy a home, raise their children, and join our community. We've heard Eastwood's declining enrollment used as the reason to close this school, but what we haven't heard is the future. With interest rates dropping, with home prices softening, with more families able to buy in this neighborhood, growth is not just possible, it is probable. Closing Eastwood now ignores what is coming. It would close the doors just as families are ready to walk through them, and it would take from our community the chance to grow and thrive again. The next one. My name is Tiffany Malumba, and I stand before you on behalf of the families of Emigration Canyon. At the last meeting, I told you plainly, if Eastwood is closed, our families will not send our children to Oak Ridge or to any other Granite Elementary School. The distance is unreasonable, and the expectation is unfair. Our children's education should not be sacrificed because this community was treated as an afterthought. That leaves us with one option: to move forward with a citizen's petition to change to a new school district for Emigration Canyon. Utah law requires signatures from just 10% of residents. With 1,623 residents in the canyon, that's only 163 people. We already have that support. 10 families already attend Indian Hills in Salt Lake City School District, several in the district's junior high and high schools, and several Eastwood families. The petition will succeed. And when it does, the result is clear. Granite will lose the property tax revenue of all 1,623 Canyon residents. Board member members and superintendent, I don't want to see that outcome. But I must be honest with you, our community will not be ignored any longer. For too long in this process, Immigration Canyon has been excluded, minimized, and dismissed. That stops tonight. We have a choice. You can acknowledge the Canyon, respect our families, and make decisions that reflect the realities of our community, or you can stand by and watch as we are forced to take action on our own. We are organized, we are determined, and we will protect our children's future at Eastwood.
The fact that this recommendation makes 0 sense is just one of many reasons we hope the board will question the PAC's recommendation. I want to highlight a couple of other reasons that this community and the board should distrust the PAC process. There have been several instances before and during the PAC study began where statements were made that to suggest that the decision had already been made before the data was even explored. You have to excuse me, this was, the person who's supposed to do this walked out, so I'm not as familiar with this as I am with my own speaking points. I want to point to a statement that was made on 3/18 at the board study session. There was a slide that appeared that combined Eastwood and Oak Ridge, so this is months ago, months before the recommendation, as if Eastwood and Oak Ridge were already a single site, well before any official recommendation. At the May 7th Community Council PAC meeting, Steve Hogan stated that Eastwood could not accommodate Oak Ridge students, but Oak Ridge could accommodate Eastwood. As we know from our earlier presenter, Mary Brooke, that's just not true. And that begs the question, what impact did that have on those participating in the study process? Well, we don't have to guess what impact it has. That several participants later told Eastwood representatives that they felt swayed by Hogan's early remarks, and some even referred to Eastwood as low-hanging fruit before any of this data had seriously been considered. These statements had an unfair influence on the process, and the information was analyzed by people who had an interest in running for facilities and rentals. They had an interest in doing things that were not focused on what's best for our students, but was best for maintaining facilities or renting them out. And I know we all know that we filter information based on what outcome we want. I'm not suggesting that this was intentional, but I also don't think that a person that is supposed to be in charge of assessing facilities and rentals can really objectively determine what's best for our students when they have a conflicting interest about what they want to do with it. Play one other statement, and for those of you who weren't involved in the PAC study process, you should know that the people who were involved were told not to talk about this to anybody, and that was something that our community council members who participated took very seriously. But here is a statement that was made on Instagram.
Let me tell you, I do think there will be of interest to you to know my part in those recommendations. Throughout this entire process, I have been going to Steve Hogan and saying, okay, so where is PAC at? What kinds of discussions? What did you discuss at your last meeting? And also, would you bring this idea or would you bring that to the conversation? And he'll say, well, we talked about this, and I'll say, well, you make sure that they're looking at this part of that and that they're asking these questions. And so I've kind of been aware of what they've been discussing all along and influencing it, influencing part of the discussion. In those ways, but I have not been in on the discussions and I have not been controlling the discussions. So I do not control that recommendation. Let me tell you, I do think there will be of interest to you to know my part in
these conversations should not have happened. And this is from the board member who's supposed to be advocating for us, who then, before the, on the day that the recommendation.
Let me tell you, I do think.
Sorry, she wants to talk again. And it was made, and on the day that the recommendation was made, she said, "I'm advocating for Eastwood's closure."
All right, this always happens to me. I need to talk with my, I think I figured it out by now. I'm supposed to talk about boundary study, and I'm going to get to that, and I'm probably going to make some enemies right now. Because before I get to that, I feel like I need to say something. So after kind of observing the language and the comments, I just need to say that the last time I commented, I asked you all to help lower the temperature, and I'm going to be frank, we are not doing our jobs in that. This is our job to do too, right? Like, polarization is not a way forward, right? That is not a way forward. We are not gonna get what we want with the way that we are approaching this. And I'm sorry, I just really feel like I needed to say that. But for those of you here, I'm gonna ask you, I'm gonna appeal to your desire to make good decisions for our kids and communities, while acknowledging that at the same time, no matter what you do, I know no matter what you do, there's going to be people who are angry and people who believe that you have a hidden agenda. But you know this, right? You're public officials. And I want you to know that there are those of us who want to understand your process and who believe that you want to understand us, okay? And so when it comes down to it, this is your decision to make, right? The laws around this are slim. They're procedural. It's public notice and comment, not a whole lot more, right? And you don't need to be here. And I recognize that. But you are here, and you're here because of your obligation to serve the public, to uphold our trust, and be stewards of our students' education. And so I hope that you can hear our real concerns through the noise. Okay, there's a lot of anger, but there's real concerns, and so I hope you can hear that. Okay, so back to the topic at hand, the boundary study. I feel like I have a pretty straightforward one, all right? This is a boundary study. So naturally, when we heard this was happening, many of us were expecting a study. Like, not a 20-page PowerPoint presentation, not nationwide statistics and trends on school performance, but an actual published study with hard data that was specific to the schools in question, analysis, and an explanation of how that data informed your decision making. And I think a lot of us just feel like we haven't gotten that. So for example, what is the forecasted future enrollment? How did you develop those numbers? How do these proposals affect equal access to special programs such as DLI, ALC, and the proposed IB program from geographic and a demographic perspective? I'm not going to stand here and tell you that I think there's an equity issue between Eastwood families in Oak Ridge. That's, to me, I'm not going to do that because I don't believe that. But there is the question of how kids in this area access those programs, and the reality that people do come from within the district to those programs, people in communities that may not have as many opportunities. And so how do these decisions affect our ability and their ability to access those programs? Also, what do the data say about class size, school choice, and charter attendance by displaced students from previous closures in this area, in this district, right? What is, not the nationwide general statistics, but what does it say about what's happened here? I think similarly, asking parents, us, what are our priorities for our children's education? I think those are the types of things that a lot of us were expecting would come out of this study, and I think we don't feel like we've gotten that. I think that's a lot of the reason that there's this kind of frustration. And I don't think that this is an extreme request. From my, of course, I'm a Google expert like everyone, so it does seem like many boundary studies throughout the country address these issues in their boundary studies. Similarly, closer to home, when the Salt Lake City School District conducted their 2023 boundary study, when they made their recommendations, the same day they made the recommendation, they released a 57-page long report that was published with that recommendation. And it clearly explained their rationale, their process, and their approach. Just for the school closure and consolidation portion, they had 5 categories and 40 different data points. And those categories included enrollment, proximity and availability, building and learning quality. So not just building quality versus learning quality, but building and learning. I think that would be a point that's really important to Eastwood parents. Placement of those district-wide programs, and also a category was community feedback. And then they had data points within those categories, and they explained how those inform their decision-making process. And that was just for the consolidation closure portion. The special programs, the boundary changes, have their own set of criteria. And they also even had a specific section that addressed paired schools, which I'm kind of inferring is how you've approached Eastwood and Oak Ridge, but you never explicitly told us that. And so it kind of felt like, there's this pairing of Eastwood versus Oak Ridge, but that was never kind of presented as part of your process. So I think they disclosed that and discussed that. And this approach didn't shield them from frustrated parents, convinced that the decisions were kind of the result of cavalier, uncaring administrators with a hidden agenda. But I don't think that's the reason to not give us that level of information. And so I guess I'm asking you, please give us that information. I think it would help a lot if we had that type of information so that we could understand, why you made this suggestion better. And I think we do have suggestions, and I think we could work together and our suggestions could be more focused and maybe try to find a solution that has elements of what everyone wants if we understood how you got to where you got to, and you want to understand why we're making the suggestions we are. I don't know. So anyway, probably not the speech that some people were hoping that I would give, but that's where I'm at. Thanks.
So the proposed merging, the proposed merging with Oak Ridge doesn't fix the problems that the PAC study is trying to study. So due to the way that the district provides schools with teachers based solely on the ratio 24:1 in kindergarten through second and 27.25 to 1 and 3 through 5, larger schools will not solve the split class problem. It strictly depends. I don't know how many mathematicians we have out there, but it strictly depends on how closely the numbers are relative to their dividend, right? So this is an example. These numbers came from Steve Hogan's slide that he presented at the 22nd, 23rd September meetings. Together, the schools would have an enrollment of 483 students. As you can see, if this merger happened today, both first grade and fifth grade would require split classes. You can also see that both kindergarten and second grade are very overcrowded. I want to solve the split class problem too, but a merger isn't going to do it. In January, when introducing the PAC study, the district also targeted erratic class size, suggesting that it occurs primarily in smaller schools. This, however, is just not the case. If you look at the same chart again, it has a total of 483 students, which is really close to the target of 500 given by the district. As you can see, class size ranges from 26 to 35, with the majority of class sizes much larger than the intended target. We've discussed unsafe walking routes. Perhaps you are aware and saw students from Eastwood walking to Oak Ridge on Monday. It received a lot of attention from local drivers as well as news outlets. 130 on average students participated to physically test and time different potential walking routes, all of which were under 1.5 miles, which is the distance defined by the state for walking students. Based on this, Eastwood would have 136 walkers, students walking twice a day to school. Some portions of the walk took as long as 1 hour and 15 minutes one way, with parents helping, in good weather. This truly showed all of us that students walking from Eastwood neighborhoods to Oak Ridge is completely unsafe, physically demanding, and not a viable option. Our survey that was already talked about a little bit of 130 respondents from current parents, the high majority of 61 respondents said that they will leave Granite School District. This is for a variety of reasons: proximity and easy access to better schools than Oak Ridge, frustration and loss of trust in the district, wanting to maintain a small school environment for their students. It is alarming that only 18 said that they would attend Oak Ridge next fall. You are looking at a potential loss of more than 100 students. This will put a large strain on the teachers and further weaken the district. The bottom line is that putting all these pieces together, Eastwood to Oak Ridge merge doesn't fix Area 5 problems as outlined by the district at the beginning of the study. Split classes will still occur. Individual classes could reach more than 30 students. Forcing students to walk unsafe routes in poor conditions not only endangers our kids, but places the district in a legally responsible tangle. The Granite School District will lose 61 high-performing students, weakening the district and putting a further restraint on their resources.
Thank you to the Eastwood community for all your variety of voices and your perspectives. We now would like to pivot to a potential solution for the Granite School District to consider. And this proposal would be as follows according to this map. We have a consolidation of the Canyon Rim area into Eastwood. We have a portion of the Penn School going into Rosecrest. We have Morningside all staying together and moving together as a group into Penn, staying within their feeder, to Wasatch, and then we also have Cottonwood enlarging its boundaries to accommodate for capacity requirements.
So I already talked about how, and other people talked about how the PAC process was flawed. And obviously we'd like to see all of our schools be left alone, but we know that realistically there may have to be something that's done. We think that this recommendation fixes a lot of things that were wrong with the initial recommendation and accomplishes more of the goals that the district said that it was trying to accomplish. So the first piece of this is that we move the current ALC program to Eastwood, and we also move the northern part of the Morningside district to Eastwood as well. In the current,
us are already here.
In the current PAC recommendation, that corner, that green corner, they suggested go to Rosecrest. That's about 45 students, and Rosecrest isn't a feeder to Churchill or to Skyline, or maybe it's to Skyline, but not to Churchill. So by moving them to Eastwood, they would continue to be in the feeding program that they're supposed to be in. And this is important because otherwise they would go to Rosecrest and those 20 to 40 students, when they finished elementary school, would then have to go to a junior high where they didn't know anybody but those other 20 to 40 students, like 5 at a time. That's not fair to those families, and they're close to Eastwood, and they're already busing, so it puts no additional strain on resources. And it could also be a solution for the Immigration Canyon busing problem. That bus could, the number of immigration families that need to bus and the number of families that need to bus from this area would all fit on one bus. So that bus could go up and pick up the elementary students and pick up the students in that corner of the Morningside, which now Eastwood boundary. And it would be the same amount of busing that they're already paying for. So no additional resources. By sending ALC to Eastwood, we could combine, sorry, this is cutting out. We could combine the high-performing schools and compete with Canyon Rim. We already outperformed Canyon Rim, but with those two schools together, we could really be the school that draws kids from all over the city. We could keep our gold stems that we have worked for so hard, and we would have a minimal loss of teachers from either school. Just doing a countdown of how many teachers are in the ALC program and how many teachers we have here at Eastwood, there would only be a loss of one teacher in the merging of those two programs. That's pretty incredible. There wouldn't be any unsafe routes required because ALC is already a commuting program. They already have to drive to get their kids to school. I know some are in Boundary, I'm sorry for those of you that are in Boundary. But this would not require us to spend any more on buses. And it would just really be a great solution for those parents to make Eastwood the school that everybody wants to come to. Now the second part of our proposal, sorry, I know, I'm taking too much time, is to move all of the rest of Morningside. Now the current PAC recommendation is to divide those between two schools, but that's unfair to those kids who have spent their entire education together. You shouldn't divide them up, you should send them all to the same school. And the school that makes the most sense is Upland Terrace. Upland Terrace has said, we want more help, we want more students, and the current PAC recommendation does nothing for Upland Terrace. It leaves them with the number of students that they had before. But sending the rest of the Morningside traditional students to Upland Terrace would help Upland Terrace with their numbers, and it would allow the Morningside families to stay together, or Morningside friends to stay together. As an addition, and obviously there are other options. You can send them to Driggs, but Driggs is already overcrowded. You could send them to Cottonwood, but that's a different feeder school. Upland Terrace makes a lot of sense. One other piece of this recommendation is that we take part of William Penn and we send them to Rosecrest. So Rosecrest also said, we want more students. The current PAC recommendation tried to fix that by sending the Morningside students to Rosecrest, but that made them a split feeder and caused problems with them, as I already mentioned, with the junior high. By sending 100 students from the William Penn boundary, we help with the already strained resources at William Penn. There were William Penn parents and teachers who showed up at the public meetings and said, we asked for help and you gave us none. I'm telling you that 500 people in a school is not ideal, it's awful. So this would help with that strained resources. It would increase the utilization score for Rosecrest. And if the Granite District is really serious about increasing its DLI program, it would actually create space in a DLI program that already turns away applications every year. The last piece of this recommendation, I'm sorry, I know I'm going long, but I feel like this is an important piece, is to send the DLI students to Oak Ridge. The reason that, fun fact, the number of DLI students, 269 students. The number of projected enrollment for Eastwood next year, also 269 students. It's exactly the same number of students. But the reason why it makes sense to send them to Oak Ridge is because Oak Ridge is just down the street from Churchill, the DLI school for junior high. It's also, I forgot another point. It's also, also, we have heard lots of rumors about Oak Ridge becoming an IB program. Well, guess what? If you're gonna have an IB program, you need to have a language component. Now there would be a language component. Also, I wanna just address, I know that the district has said that they wanna turn the French DLI into this huge program, but I think that that shows, a lack of understanding about how the French DLI works. You can't just add 100 students. Each class has to have 2 teachers. It has to have a French teacher, and so each first grade class has to have a French teacher and an English teacher. So if you added 100 students, you could actually only add 2 grades. And that's not viable for a DLI program, it's just not. And as other people have already said, the cost for visas, the thought that we're gonna get that many more French students just isn't practical. You could also send it to Cottonwoods, which is closer to Butler Elementary. I'm about to get kicked off the stage. Which is closer to Butler Elementary, which is rumored to be closing its French program, so it would make it more competitive for the French program there. But we think that this recommendation satisfies all of the needs of this district. It's not a perfect recommendation. We're not going to get a perfect recommendation, but it helps more schools and it makes more sense.
We did want to make sure that we also left time, that Steve Hogan could answer more of those questions. So it is in good faith, and I hope that we can all listen in good faith that the district has come to help answer some of the questions that we have provided, and hoping to get some more information. So now we're going to turn the time over to Steve.
Go back and use these original slides first. I think I've got 15 minutes. I'm going to get comfortable. Hi. Yes, my name is Steve Hogan, Planning and Boundaries, Granite School District. One thing that was put up there earlier, Planning and Boundaries, the Director of Planning and Boundaries, but also Building and Facility Rentals. I'm not the Director of Facilities. That's someone else, and, but just a little distinction for you there. All great numbers. I love these. I love the presentation. I love the video. I especially love the children's and their feedback and interaction. This is an amazing school. One thing that's amazing and at the same time difficult about this study is we have fantastic schools across the board. There's just no easy solution. It's complex. And when you have successful schools across the board, yeah. I've seen similar presentations at most every school we've attended, and it makes it more difficult. Sorry. Attrition rate. Is attrition rate on this one? Yeah. There are a couple things. I'll try to jump real quick. I'm going to talk fast. Sorry, I've got cough drops, so I'll start coughing. I'll talk quickly. If I've got only 15 minutes, there's no way I can get through all this. Like I said, I'll stay after if you want me to. A couple of things I'll just address to provide some context, perhaps. Student attrition, more at Oak Ridge. In my conversations with Oak Ridge the last couple of days, for instance, they, when I asked about this, they said, well, yes, they have more students that are leaving to go to AOC and DLI and some of the other programs. And so if you're talking to strictly attrition for those reasons, that could be the reason. Do we know attrition rates for every school? Sometimes they're leaving to charter or private schools. We know that. That's everywhere. We don't all have that data. They don't share that data with us. And so to identify all the time why a student leaves a school or comes to a school is difficult. This is an amazing school. Period, full stop. Also, you know, if you look at the mobility charts that we have on there, now, and does this mean everything I'm about to say? No. About 5 or 6 students this past year came from Oak Ridge to Eastwood, but about 25 students went from Eastwood to Oak Ridge. Now, if I use that out of context, I can make an issue with that. Well, what makes Oak Ridge so great? Why are they leaving Eastwood in larger, 3 to 4 times the numbers to go to Oak Ridge? There are all kinds of reasons that people leave schools and leave areas. I don't know if that's reflective at all of the building, the principal, the teachers, the academics, anything. Where a babysitter lives, where a parent lives, or it's on their way to work, 10 other reasons why people choose to go to other areas. There are a lot. Let's go to the next slide, unless there's anything here that ADA accessible. Okay, fair point. Technically, yes. Technically, this is ADA accessible. I get it. You can go outside, there is a ramp there. We could be more specific on what was intended there, that just meaning that inside. A couple of years ago, that was done at Oak Ridge, and with no forethought or planning of this study happening, and it's inside. By the way, I'm an educator. I'm not a consultant, I'm not a business person, I'm a former teacher, coach, principal. I'm familiar with the outside ADA because when I was the principal at Churchill for a number of years, we had the same situation. 3 floors, but they had to leave the outside 3rd floor, if you're familiar, and come all the way down the sidewalk and back in to where you can get in, technically. But I would sit in my office and watch them come down on crutches or on wheelchairs or hobble in the snow and those things all the way around the building. Not perfect, I get it. A point, it's not the point. Let's go to the next slide. Great. Yeah, again, we can compare scores. I'll just say this briefly. I've got slides, but I won't go all through all of those. There's no doubt. I'll stop there on that one for a second. There's 2 things. If you go to the Data Gateway, it's a USBE, Utah School, the State School Board website, and it has all data on there. You'll see Eastwood near the top of those. If you look last year and compare just Oak Ridge to Eastwood, Oak Ridge was slightly better across the board. However, that's one snapshot, 1 year. Okay? Does that mean everything? No. If you take a broader view of the last 4 to 5 years, I think, if I remember, going on memory, Eastwood slightly edged out Oak Ridge in a lot of those categories. So they're both great schools, is the point. We could talk data in those 2 slides probably for hours. This is a big deal. Gold STEM school, this is a big deal. There are, according to when I looked on at the Utah Action, or the STEM Action Network, and I looked on the website today, you mentioned, I think, 3 or 4 or 5, and I think there are 7 gold schools across the state. Okay, I'll check my data. I looked at 7, but I'll take your word for it. So I'm trying to reply as quickly as I can to all of these to make sure we get it. Gold is important. We also have 7 other platinum schools in the district. It's important. We want, that would be great if every school that wanted to be that could be. You're right, it doesn't directly move with students, but it can be applied for, is my point. Another school applies just like this school did. So I'm talking quickly, but let's go to the next one. Stuff. Understand. There we go. Understand the roles for a second before I get to this. As Director of Planning and Boundaries, I chair this Population Analysis Committee. There's the superintendent, the superintendency that we, of course, talk to, but superintendent is not a 10-pack. In the end, the board, we make recommendations. The PAC makes recommendations to the board. Many board members attend these meetings. Many are here tonight. And those that don't attend typically watch, review, film, and watch and listen to all of this data. In the end, regardless of what I say, I guess you could say I'm defending the PAC's recommendation. But the board in the end hears what the PAC says, and they also hear and listen to all of this and what you say and how you feel. So I kind of joke that we've been doing this for a while, and the good part of that, the silver lining is the boards had to do that, and they have. And kudos to the board for making hard decisions and listening to communities. Often they do what they approve what the PAC recommends, not always. Sometimes that's different. So this is great info. Attrition, we talked about that one. Fair point, depending on how you define centrality. What we have been talking about, and if you've seen our slides, you just said central, you can see it, and we can agree to disagree or just disagree, but central to majority or this area. We're in no way leaving out. The rationale for the PAC in describing it that way was regardless that the busing, Immigration Canyon bus was going to come this way either way, regardless of whether it was at Oak Ridge or Eastwood. It had to come this direction either way. So as far as spending more time on the bus, that part I would disagree with. But the situation is currently, when the elementary students come down, before they come to Eastwood, they also go a little further, past the canyon and up to a corner of the boundary, pick up students, bring them back here. In the Oak Ridge open plan, one bus picks up at Immigration Canyon, takes them straight to Oak Ridge. A separate bus picks up all the other students that are bus eligible, and we believe transportation tells me at the very least everyone north of the canyon. So that's one bus and it picks them up separately. So actually the Immigration Canyon students would be on the bus less time in that scenario than they are now. Okay? Hazardous busing. I'll check those start times. Dr. Gaddy told me today when I talked to him about time on the bus, anywhere from 45 to 55 minutes on average. I know that'll depend on some traffic. If you get traffic on Sunnyside or coming down Foothill or weather, all of those things are an issue. Okay? Okay, great. Kirby's fantastic. Kirby's the driver, by the way, the bus driver. Okay, yep. I joked, if Kirby runs for mayor of Immigration City, she will win. So, no. Fantastic, I love this, I love the effort. I can't disagree in concept or in philosophy on what's called at the state, from the UDOT website that we use that hosts this, a safe walking route. Don't really like the name, never have. I try to change that verbiage to safest or preferred or best possible or the worst best case scenario because quite frankly, all across the district, and all across the state, most districts in the state struggle with this issue. Really quick recap, remember, according to state, not according to the district, but 1.5 miles away from an elementary and 2 miles for a secondary is bus eligible. And that's according to walking route software that is used. That's typical across the country. Anything inside that is considered a walking route. Is it safe on all of our streets in this area? You can absolutely debate and find unsafe areas here. I have this conversation every single year when we're changing boundaries. Is it ideal to cross, right at the canyon, Mill Creek and Wasatch? What's ideal? No, it's not. And I have the conversation with people that have to cross on the west side, 62nd South, 54 South, 41st South, 47 South, and so on, and Bangor Highway and Bacchus Highway. I'm not minimizing here. I'm trying to keep context. I'm saying I don't disagree with anyone. I'm only saying that it happens everywhere, and in a perfect world, I wish it weren't the case. Okay. So, when it comes to sidewalks and things like that, I understand that's Mill Creek City, and I encourage the same group to show up to the cities and advocate for whatever you think is good for your community for safe walking routes. Okay? I know I won't have a perfect answer for you. So.
Reiterate where you anticipate transportation. You said north of Mill Creek?
North of the canyon. North of Mill Creek Canyon is what transportation has committed to at this point. Okay. Okay. Yeah, this is the front of Oak Ridge here. A couple of weeks ago, Dr. Gaddy, our Director of Transportation, it was a day when we didn't have students, I think that Friday, he drove a school bus up and met the superintendent and I at this very location. Picked us up, and first he tried coming in the way it says now. You come in from the north side and come out the south side. Doable, but a little more difficult. The route that we tried then was to go past, whether you're coming up Oakview or Jupiter, to go past the school up to Broadbank. Now I've got this slide and I can show it, but it takes time. And enter this way. Now yes, it says do not enter, right? We turn the sign around, change the flow of traffic, and bus or two buses can certainly go that direction. It doesn't have to back up, and that's why it would go around the block and in. There's nothing perfect about any pickup and drop off at any school, I think in our district or the state or the country. It's a challenge. That's my time. Whatever you want me to do. I'll stay and answer more questions, or I'll just...
Give you a little break. Okay. Well, do you want to go through all these, or do you want to wrap up and then move to questions?
Yeah, let's move to questions.
Sure.
All right. Thank you so much, Steve. So I want to say thank you to all of our presenters for sharing this important information and for helping illuminate what's truly at stake for our students and our community. Members of the board and Granite School District representatives, we are asking you to give serious, thoughtful, and genuine consideration to the alternative solutions that we've presented tonight. They are strategic and data-informed and student-centered. They provide stronger educational outcomes, address access and equity concerns, and resolve population utilization challenges. And importantly, they reflect the values and priorities of the families you serve. And I just want to encourage you to think, you don't always have to defend. We did a lot of work to try to find a solution that might work. And then that's an option. So we're trying to find something that might work. Just as a reminder, the option that we put together was the idea to relocate Morningside's ALC program to Eastwood, and along with a portion of their traditional enrollment students that a lot of them are already going to Eastwood but are at the northern boundary of Morningside that are already being bused. This move would bring Eastwood's total enrollment to over 400 students, eliminate the current split feeder pattern to Churchill, and create a compelling competitive alternative to Canyon Rim Charter for families in this area. We would also encourage looking at redrawing boundaries to address more schools' concerns so that we can keep the rest of Morningside's traditional students together, going to Upland Terrace, so also addressing Upland Terrace's desire to have more students, and that we would look at taking William Penn boundaries and reducing some of their students to relieve some of their population constraints and maybe leave room for the DLI to grow there. And reassign those students to Rosecrest, so still addressing Rosecrest's need for additional students. And finally, recommending that you would consider the French dual language program to go to Oak Ridge, which would increase their population, as well as aligning with Churchill being the feeder school for the DLI, and an interest in the IB program that would provide French teachers that are absolutely needed for the primary school program to work. So this plan is not simply an alternative, it's a better solution. It creates balanced enrollment, optimizes building use, and ensures program continuity, all while expanding access to high-quality educational opportunities. It allows the district to solve the challenges identified by the PAC study without sacrificing what makes Eastwood a model school. And what makes Eastwood exceptional is clear. Our school is uniquely and conveniently located to attract out-of-boundary and out-of-district families seeking excellent programs. We have outstanding student and teacher retention, a gold STEM designation, and gifted and talented certified educators in every grade. So for those ALC families that are worried about their student maybe not testing in 3rd grade, they would still have those gifted students or those gifted teachers in every grade. These are not just points of pride, they are proof of the value of Eastwood that it adds to Granite School District. This is a rare opportunity to make a decision that strengthens the district's portfolio, meets the needs of current and future students, and reflects the voices of the community that you all represent, that we all represent. We urge you to see these recommendations not as resistance, but as an invitation to a better path forward, one that prioritizes children, strengthens communities, and demonstrates that thoughtful collaboration can lead to outcomes where everyone wins. So thank you for your time, your leadership, and your willingness to consider these solutions with the seriousness they deserve. Our superintendent Wesley would like a moment to speak, and then we will open it up to Q&A. We do have prepared questions because we asked for parents to send them to them, so we have a few prepared questions to start us off, and then we can open up, but I want to give time for Superintendent Wesley.
I'm paying attention to how to utilize this mic correctly, so if you can't hear me, please just wave and flags down. I want to thank you all for this incredible presentation and the tremendous effort that went into putting and collating some of this information. While Steve only had a few minutes to address some of those questions and concerns, I think the primary concern that I have is that there's any question of integrity with respect to our process. So I respect the fact that there's some perception challenges and problems. We can certainly address each and every one of those, but we can do that one-on-one. The fact is, perception's reality, oftentimes, and so with respect to that, that's my greatest concern, and so I appreciate some of those concerns being brought to light. And most of all, I just want to thank you for what I do feel is collaboration. This is what we've been asking for, and you have given us a solution, and we're absolutely going to run those numbers. We have been looking at the feedback we've already received at the other meetings and running additional numbers, rerunning different scenarios and circumstances to make sure that we are in fact paying attention to the feedback that we've received. Again, I want to reiterate that our solution is one that is least impactful and disruptive to the most families. And so if it feels like Eastwood is being picked on, I apologize, that's not our intent. Our intent is to make the adjustments necessary to get our schools to a healthy place in terms of population with the least impact possible. So again, you've given us some additional things to think about beyond what we already gathered from the previous 2 meetings, and I just want to thank you that you would come and spend a Tuesday evening with us to continue to collaborate. So we'll look forward to addressing some of your questions at this point. So thank you again.
Thank you so much. Okay, we'll start our Q&A session with our prepared questions. Yes, great. Have this over. And I am gonna have a timer for both of you in the response. And I'm just gonna say to everyone, if you could, at the beginning, say whether this is a question that I would like an answer to, or this is a comment. Because I know sometimes we want to present rhetorical questions. So maybe that's just good to put that right up front if it's a question, a comment, or a question I would actually make a response to.
This is a little bit of an in-between because it may take some thinking about. The district has already started spending money to pursue IB, the IB program at an elementary level without parent or community input. Once it is started, an IB certification for an elementary school will take at least 3 to 5 years. I myself was an IB student, so I'm well versed with the high school program, which is indeed the strength of the IB program. What is the purpose of having a K through 12 IB program when the majority of students will drop out or be counseled out at the high school level because it's rigorous, challenging, and solely for academically advanced students? Park City Schools has already abandoned the IB program due to its cost and its ability to only be successful for a very narrow group of students. Eastwood already has a thriving academic and gold STEM program. Why are we dismantling a successful school to encourage an experimental program with limited gains for a large price tag?
Steve may not want me to tell you this, but he needs to use the restroom, so I guess I get this question. All right. That's an excellent question. I don't think there's an effort to dismantle anything. I think we're trying to promote and enhance the excellence that we already see, and we feel like we could do that with some synergy between two awesome school communities. But back to the actual question, which is in relation to the IB program. I think there's some insinuation here that Granite District is working what I would like to be silo-free, but oftentimes our curriculum department was working with Churchill Junior High to enhance. We're actually seeing attraction, particularly from Canyon students, and stealing from their population. Don't tell Dr. Robbins that I said this, he's the superintendent over there. But, and there was general interest in increasing and enhancing participation in Skyline's program. So the idea is to build up the program at Churchill so that we can even promote Skyline further. So it was about strengthening the network. That idea and that suggestion was actually brought forward long before the study was brought forward. We sent some people to conferences to get some additional information. So the two issues are kind of separate in their running. The concept is this: we only have actually, if you talk about Skyline and people ask about Skyline, what do they say? IB, right? It's what it's known for, but it's one of those major things that attracts people to IB. But actually, most of the kids at Skyline don't even participate in IB. We only see between 35 and 60 kids graduate with that full IB certification because of the rigor, as you pointed out. And the goal is to actually increase that by getting kids up to speed and part of that program at a younger age for those families who have interest. Again, the idea of enhancing Churchill's enrollment and stealing more kids from Canyon. So thank you for that question.
I'll answer this one. So before I ask my question, I just want to acknowledge that I understand that this situation may feel defensive for the district and many of those who were involved in the PAC study recommendation. But based on the way that Steve responded to our presentation, I'm afraid that our recommendations won't be taken seriously. So I just want to sincerely ask and plead with those who are making these decisions that you will earnestly consider our decisions and keep your minds open. And now my question, as to the point, sure.
I want to reassure you that I've already held 3 or 4 meetings since the previous meetings to take into consideration the feedback that we've already gotten. That is the whole intent. We give ourselves lots of time and space between those open houses, the initial recommendation, so that we can go back and modify the recommendation to make sure it meets the needs of our students and our families. So please be assured, we're going to run the data on this recommendation. We're going to collaborate further. There's some things that I can see that aren't going to work well, but there's some other things that I would like to look into a little bit further and see if it could work out well.
Okay, thanks. It felt a little bit like a defensive posture, so I just wanted to put that out there. So my question is about the point that was made that drop-off and pickup is more challenging at Eastwood. Was there a traffic study done to come to that conclusion?
Was there a traffic study in that we had a traffic engineer stand out here and take notes and do what's called a warrant study and do all of that stuff? No. What I'm saying is not that type of study. No, this is years. Hear me out. This is years of observation and talking to principals and parents and understanding what happens in each school. Again, I'll just preface that with saying there's no perfect situation or solution to hardly any school. A lot of the challenges that we have, it's not just on campus, but it's directly off campuses. Does this one work? I'm glad to go back and forth, but.
mean, I understand there's not a perfect solution, but my question is about a specific claim that was used as part of why Eastwood was to be closed. So I'm actually, you say you talked to staff or parents. Was that done during the PAC study? And were those parents Eastwood parents? Were they Eastwood faculty? And how is that measured? Because this, to be included as that type of point, I think what we all are wondering is what was the measured data to use? Because it's so subjective.
Combination of things. Again, experiential, observational. I've set out here, I'm not a traffic engineer, but I'm a former principal and teacher, give me a second, and I observe. And those things I've observed and talked to former principals. And the issue is, right now, with 232 students, it's not as much of an issue.
But I asked if you talked to them during the study.
Okay.
Eastwood faculty or
Eastwood faculty? No.
Eastwood
No.
parents?
I've talked to a lot of parents. I don't know if they're Eastwood. Let me tell you. Let me finish that part, and I'll come back. Okay. Okay. Let me finish. I've been in the district 28 years. I've been around long enough to remember when there were 500. What I'm saying is, currently, with 232 students, is it as much of an issue? No. But if you combine enrollments and you're back up to 450 to 5, let me finish.
This is a really long
Then-
answer that isn't answering my question.
My answer is, do I know for sure?
There is no doubt. So the
Do I know for
answer,
sure?
my
I've talked to
question is,
okay, let's go with no. Then,
Thank
but
you.
my answer is, I don't think we have to talk to someone.
thank you for your honesty. I think the problem and why we're so frustrated is we ask simple questions. We ask for data to back up your claims. We get long-winded answers that don't.
Thank you, that makes sense to me, and I can understand the frustration. I think the primary data source that we're actually referencing and was referenced before was actually traffic study conducted by an independent engineer.
Can you include that? Can we all see that?
Okay.
Can you publish that?
All right, let me finish, because I don't actually have copies of that traffic safety study.
You can't fault us for being angry at this. You can't.
Nobody is faulting you. I don't mind your passion at all. I welcome it. If I was in your situation with 5 kids who participate in traditional schools, I have no problems with your concerns or your frustrations here. That's why we're here, right? We want to make sure that you do have good information. I conducted a community engagement meeting several years ago after we received several $100,000 in grant money from the county of Salt Lake to improve the drive-through safety at this school because of concerns with known traffic safety issues coming right off this freeway space. So they identified it with their independent traffic safety engineer to be able to address that, and they granted us that money. They came and did the conducted surveys. They provided 3 options. We brought those to the community. Mayor Silverstrini at the time, before Mill Creek was a city, was actually the community council chair, and he hosted that meeting over at Churchill Junior High. Invariably, none of those solutions were accepted by the community, and the county rescinded the money. And so that's why, our data set is based on Salt Lake County's assessment of the traffic and the drive-through safety.
Okay, so I want to reiterate this in as calm a way as I can.
Sure.
Although you can see I'm very
You're doing a great job. I
passionate
appreciate
about
it.
this. What I would ask is that you either take that reason off for closing Eastwood or provide the data to back up your claim.
Thank you. Can take it out now.
Okay, so my question is rhetorical. Okay, so why hasn't the district done any studies to show whether this supposed solution is actually effective? Can you tell us how many combined classes exist in Indian Hills, Copper Hills, and Oakwood? How big are their classes? How many combined classes did they have before Granite School District closed its neighboring schools? And what were those class sizes then?
So this is kind of in the same thought process there. The district has suggested throughout the PAC study for Area 5 that the ideal school size is 500 students. Can you cite any materials or research that led to that conclusion? Or does the district have a cost analysis for a different size school? Because I haven't seen it. My background's in information science, so I do my homework, I know my research. A quick Google search will pull up a plethora of academic research focused on small schools. One example was published in 2023, Small Schools White Paper, a meta-study based on the benefits of small schools. So the focus was on schools with a population of 350 students or less. Research shows, here we go guys, that small schools offer advantages including higher academic achievement, increased student engagement, personalized instruction, stronger teacher-student relationships, better school safety, higher participation in extracurriculars, improved behavior, and a more positive school climate. These are all things that we see at Eastwood, a small school. The benefits, and I think we really need to think about this, that was found in the study. The benefits, particularly for disadvantaged students, extend to higher high school graduation rates and increased college attendance. So you are changing the educational landscape for hundreds of students to make larger schools, knowing that there are disadvantages all the way through college. Smaller, more intimate learning communities consistently deliver better results in academics and discipline when compared to their larger counterpoints. Big schools offer few opportunities to participate. I know in the past, through this research, people have said, oh, you might get a theater production, or you might get this or that, but the problem is it only affects a small portion of the students at that school. Here at Eastwood, we have Dance Fest. We have a Christmas program where 100% of the students participate, not just some. In our district, William Penn has over 500 students. Does it have any combined classes? Yes. So total school population doesn't actually ensure that there will be no split classes, nor is it supported by any academic research. Perhaps Granite needs to take time to rethink what their goals are actually achieving.
If I can respond, I do want to respond to a couple of things there, and I'll try to get everything if you remind me as we go if I'm missing one of your questions. Capacity, why do we often say, you've heard us, and I've used the number 500. And if you listen, you also hear me say on average. Now, that means in our district, and that goes back to the average size of our schools. 500 is not magic. There's nothing about that necessarily. It depends on the size of the school. Our goal initially is not, remember, so much the size, the overall enrollment, but the 3 teachers per grade level. That's a minimum. That's what we're trying to get to give us the economy of scale, to give us what we consider our minimums at a school. If you look at the research, and you referenced several times small schools and the success of small schools around the country, just, you know how it is with research, and be careful what you Google. If you look at that carefully, usually what the research is referring to is small class size. There's 2 elements here. Let me finish. Let me finish. I know, I hear you. It can be both. Now, and why I say it can be both. Small class size is often what it's referred to. If you're on the East Coast or West Coast, or a state that has a WPU or a per student expenditure of $15,000, $20,000, $25,000, then you typically will have small class sizes. That means your small school of 250 to 300 students already have that 3 teachers at grade level. So that you have to just be careful to look at what they're studying. So let me finish, and then I'll take the rest of that. So it really varies. What we know and experienced, and we we've had on our slides for years, the benefits of consolidation, the advantages of more teachers, an economy of scale, averaging out the class sizes. Can you say that in a school of 232 or 38, where you're at now, that a principal could memorize and know everyone's name? Probably easier, yes. But there's an upside and downside and trade-offs to everything. There's no doubt that that's possible.
I don't think there's a downside to the principal knowing the students.
Not to that, I'm saying small schools in general. So we also know that small schools, again, have these ups and downs in class size, like I mentioned, and peaks and valleys in store classes. So we could go another 30 minutes, but the next question I'll be glad to.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to comment that this, as I said, was based specifically on school population, not on class size. There are much research, and you did one last year. Guess who has the largest school size in the nation, class size? Utah.
Yeah. It goes back to, I don't disagree with that, and it goes back to legislative funding. So the district doesn't control the state legislature. I'm going to let the superintendent be expert there.
The district does control our operating funds, and we did raise your taxes to reduce your class size this year. But the overall per pupil is the same for every district that we get from the state. And you are correct, Utah has the lowest per pupil expenditure. And so again, to Steve's point, a school back east with 25,000 or 15,000 per student as opposed to our roughly 4,500. I'm looking for Todd to affirm that number. They're still getting 3 teachers per grade level. That's what we're trying to shoot for that economies of scale. So that overall number, I think, is important to reflect upon.
And I just want to say that we'll open it up now to public comment. So if you'd like to make a comment, orderly, flag it up. And I encourage you again to mention if it is a comment, not looking for a response so that we all know, or if it's a question. And I'll keep the timing going for both the question asker and for the response.
I don't know how to run the fast.
My name is Dr. Gregory Kuhn, and my PhD is in strategic management and public policy, particularly how bureaucrats focus on creating fiefdoms rather than serving the taxpayer interest. 5 of my graduate PhD level statistics classes are from the Ed Psych department at the U of U, and right now you guys are in F. And the misrepresentations you have made with your statistical lies is appalling. I'll bring up an example of when you closed Canyon Ruby saying it wasn't necessary. Well, it now has 500 students with a years-long waiting list, and they're #1 in the state. We didn't need them. Now, the point that you've totally ignored here about Eastwood Elementary is this is a microclimate. This area has never, in the years that I was here, I spent 4 years co-op, twice a week in the classroom. The next 3 years I was in the classroom more than once a week, so I know Eastwood. Now, this microclimate, we never shut down the school one single day for air pollution when the rest of Granite was closed. Now, the toxic air pollution out there does damage the kids' brains' development as they're growing up. It increases their levels of sickness. They are then sick more often. To put it in a short way, being a Gold Star STEM school and the best air quality in all of Salt Lake Valley, undisputed. This microclimate that also included Canyon Rim, it is the last school you should be shutting down. It's Gold STEM. It has an air quality you cannot replace anywhere else. You are knowingly damaging the kids' health and their mental development by shutting down this school.
You want my eyes? I'll,
With
you got my
enthusiasm,
attention.
I propose that the ALC program be integrated into Eastwood Elementary School. It would be a seamless fit. Eastwood is known for excellence and high academic achievement throughout the district and the state. Most of our teachers already hold gift intelligence certification. Eastwood's prime location makes it a no-brainer. We have been and will continue to be a magnet for district and out-of-district families in search of high-quality education. This is reason enough to keep Eastwood open. This solution would also enable the district to keep its commitment to taxpayers and the community by rebuilding the worst buildings first. The high performance of Eastwood students and staff is already a beacon to families. Adding ALC would heighten, expand, and enrich students' lives for decades to come. Families would flock here. This is the answer. I urge the board and district to stop ignoring the facts presented to you. Facts that have been thoroughly researched and carefully presented. A recent survey with 129 respondents, now 130, asked Eastwood parents, if you are unable to send your child or children to Eastwood, which option are you most likely to pursue? 61 respondents, as we discussed, 47% answered in favor of options that remove them from the district. This makes the projections for growth at an Eastwood/Oak Ridge merger wildly misinformed. Many parents have already spoken with administration at Beacon Heights and Indian Hills. These schools are prepared to open their doors to Eastwood students. They will happily welcome us. You want to drive students away. They will happily, excitedly welcome us. We have spots open for Eastwood students, they say. These are more convenient options than Oak Ridge for many families. They will move to Salt Lake City School District before choosing to backtrack 2 miles. Canyon Rim Academy and Cosgrove schools also offer easier access and are high-ranking schools. Wonderful options for parents who consider their commute and are done with the lies, the misinformation, and the lack of effort, transparency, and acknowledgement that the PAC and Granite School District have shown Eastwood families. Steve, you've written off solutions we present, thinking we're letting emotions get in the way. However, we take into account what you refuse to. Look around. Parents choose Eastwood. And we will continue to do so, especially when the ALC program is brought to its new home. Tonight, I want you to remember these 4 words. Stop, invest, relocate, and watch. Stop the recommendation to close a school that has clear options to not only survive, but to thrive and attract families to Granite School District. Invest in the only gold STEM school in the district on this side of the valley. Relocate the ALC program to Eastwood. Watch as students succeed and families, the community, and taxpayers regain their trust in Granite School District and want to be here again. Thank you.
So I want to make, this isn't my actual question, but I feel like I have to do it for our wonderful teachers and staff. Here tonight and at all of the meetings, presentations, we've heard a lot about our teachers being constricted, our teachers having feelings about, our teachers haven't expressed any of these concerns. There are teachers that are here that have been here since I went here 18 years ago. My grandmother was the secretary here for almost 10 years before she continued her service at Granite School District before her passing. Hear me, the community has given to the district. Why is the district turning its back on us now? Our teachers, they don't want this. They have been here and will continue to be here. They could have fled last year when this first came out. They didn't. So that's just
looked at the map, I'm sorry, you don't have the screen again. At the end, is it kind of just not gonna work?
Well, it's
I
just
could
about
show the
this,
map.
you're creating a school
Yeah,
desert.
so, just to clarify, you're saying this would be a school desert above 215 or above Wasatch? Right, right.
Oak Ridge is 2 miles from the corner of.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the boundaries overall, we have clusters of schools in some areas, just like I talked about. One of the reasons it impacts Morningside is you have Oak Ridge, Morningside, Driggs, and Crestview all within about a 2-mile radius. It's everything. It's not just the quote, there we go. It's not just the quote desert effect, but it's where we can pair schools, where we can combine. We feel like we can combine boundaries the best.
And I want to make this very clear because I feel like the gold STEM designation has kind of been put off as you can just apply for that. Our students, our faculty, our community has spent the past almost 8 years working on that designation and have almost gotten to the platinum status. And your comments saying, well, we have other, like just acknowledge it. It is amazing that this elementary school with these limited resources that we have been able to do it, and then we do it, and we thrive in it. And please just don't negate it anymore. Just instead of saying, well, you can just apply for it, and you can't just apply for it. You can work towards it, but it's not just you who apply.
Okay.
Hi guys. I'm Kyle Delmeyer. I have a first grader and a preschooler here, and I went to Eastwood myself. Ben said perception is reality, and so I just want to give you a chance to address some rumors because we've all had to deal with rumor men. So rumor the first, was Julie actively steering students before the school year not to attend Eastwood? Yes or no? Julie?
I can't speak to that. I don't have that
Julie's here.
information. This is not what this meeting's about. So
No, I understand.
that would be.
Okay. All right. Hey.
Julie is one board member out of 7, and this meeting is intended for us to address. So with respect, with absolute respect for the concern, it's just not something we can address.
Okay. Well, you see where we're coming from. All right.
I'm not aware of any circumstance.
Okay, I'm just saying, these are the rumors that.
Sure, I saw the slide.
Right,
That was,
so,
yeah.
rumor 1 was that Julie was before the school year. This is why we don't feel like we got a fair shake. Because
Sure.
this is one rumor that Julie's telling people before the school year, don't go to Eastwood, they're closing. Okay, rumor the second, moving on. That, okay, yeah, thank you, Julie. Julie is our representative, so I think it's fair to ask.
I was trying to think because I didn't know about this rumor.
Sure.
Like, have I ever done that? I couldn't think of a time when I've done that, but I can't imagine that. I thought to myself, okay, well, could you have forgotten about a time? Would I do that? If there was a situation where somebody was coming to me, like a parent was coming to me, and their child had specific needs, and I could see that they weren't being met at a school and that I could not get that need met, and I knew it was being met somewhere else, I would tell them about it, you know, because my allegiance is to kids. So I don't remember a time if that happened with a parent, then they should talk to me. Is this you?
I was in that conversation. We were at, what was the other, Olympus High School, with a neighborhood family whose son was in preschool, and we were talking about needs. And you specifically said, if that was my child, I would keep them where they're at. That was at Salt Lake City School District School. And instead of advocating for schools in our district, and you know what? They did not come here.
I do remember that. Actually, now that you say that, I wasn't thinking about it as that it was a preschool situation. Because guess what? That child was succeeding there, and they were trying to figure out what they were going to do in the transition. And every time, I'm going to put the child before the institution. So I will do that every time, put the child before the institution. I don't
putting the
regret
children
that.
before the institution with this recommendation?
Okay,
I feel
let
like-
me move on real quick, because I have two other quick questions. In July, second rumor, in July, that the Oak Ridge principal was saying something to the effect of Oak Ridge won, Eastwood lost, in July. Do you have any understanding of that? Have you heard that? Any comment?
I have no knowledge or understanding of that.
Rumor third, and the biggest one. Do you have any knowledge, understanding, or information pertaining to an architect coming to the Eastwood property to do an easement or boundary or any other survey pertaining to building a fire station and or housing on this property?
I reiterated this at the last meeting at Skyline. The process for purchasing property comes through me as superintendent. I have never had a single conversation with anybody from Unified Fire Authority. The only connection that I can make to that is the school secretary told me a few years ago that happened, that somebody told them that they were gonna build a fire station there. That's the only thing I've ever been able to associate with that. We've never hosted. He's our rental guy, so if somebody wanted to come on school property, they would have talked to Steve Thompson at the district office, first and foremost. He oversees our real estate committee, or they would have gotten permission from Steve here to come onto property to do some sort of assessment.
Okay.
I'm not aware of anything of
Fair
that
enough.
nature.
Those were the rumors. I'm glad we
Sure. Thank you for bringing that up. Can I just say, we're not selling the property. Like, we have been given explicit direction from our Board of Education that we're going to maintain our open spaces, and we've been given no direction to sell any other property ever since the last piece of property we sold. So, you have what in writing? I'm sorry. I've said it publicly multiple times. We've said it in open board meeting. I'm your superintendent. The direction I have from the Board of Education is to retain properties for our long-term use, because the one thing we don't know what we're going to be able to do is where we're going to rebuild when it's time to rebuild any of these schools. We don't know if there was a major seismic event, if we were able to provide accommodations to our students and our families if this building was somehow not able to be utilized after that seismic event. So we're trying to take all of those things into consideration, as well as maintaining the open space that this place needs, this area needs. So at this point in time, with this Board of Education, that's not something we intend to do.
Okay.
So this is a comment with some rhetorical questions at the end. I represent the countless young adults actively involved in this Mill Creek City family. I'm the Scoutmaster of Mill Creek's Troop 5, and I'm on the Sons of Utah Pioneers Scholarship Committee, where I award scholarships to students at York, Cottonwood, Olympus, and Skyline High Schools. I graduated Eastwood in 2015, and because of the rock solid foundation that this school gave me, I now attend the U as a cardiovascular researcher and a member of the University Student Health and Wellness Advisory Board, where I advise on the health and wellness of the 36,000 University of Utah students. And I'm here to advise this board that closing Eastwood would be a monumental mistake for the wellness of the children in this district and the wellness of the district itself. In his first inauguration speech, Mayor Silvestrini said about here that we have a place here where kids return to live in the same community they grew up in. And as a future inheritor of properties in Mill Creek, I can proudly say that I'm one of those kids who plans on returning to Mill Creek to raise a family. But one concern I have is for my future children, is that this school district is taking away the literal shining star of an elementary school for a quick buck, completely disregarding the entire community in the process. Senate.gov clearly states that over 60% of Eastwood students come from outside school and district boundaries. I remember my parents driving my sister and I from Park City to be Eastwood Eagles. I remember Principal McCaslin coming clear from Camas and teachers coming clear from Provo and Farmington, and Fred's who came across the entire valley to be Eagles. Why? Because this school produces one-of-a-kind students due to the involved parents and amazing teachers, many of which still teach here a decade after I left. And I would call heroic teachers and staff like the late Vicki Burrow and Wendy Jones, who put their hearts and souls into this school until the very weeks they passed away because the kids were more important to them. Yet this district takes the dedication of the Eastwood staff and the parents for granted and denies an aspiring parent's desire for his children to attend the local, top-of-the-line elementary. Let me be blunt. Even if this district convinced the dedicated teachers to transfer schools instead of retiring and convinced Eastwood's bright students to not enroll in charter and homeschooling, you would still have the exact result of taking apart a Ferrari and putting its parts in beat-up bugs. The Ferrari parts wouldn't work the same, and the bugs would only look faster because the Ferrari's no longer there. And you can say whatever you like about my generation, but if you didn't see from last November, we are a generation that is politically active, not afraid to initiate change, and not afraid to vote. For a school district claiming that removing Eastwood will save them from decreasing enrollment, tell me, how does possibly losing 30% of your total students fix that? And sure, you'd make a few million selling Eastwood's land, but would it be worth forever losing the property taxes of every home and business in Mill Creek, Holiday, South Salt Lake, Emigration Canyon, and sections of Murray? I advise this district, if you continue down the path of taking future parents such as I for granted, and you close schools like Eastwood, you would be planting the seeds that would result in Mill Creek, Holiday, and South Salt Lake voting to protect the education of our children and protect the value of our properties from a school district who no longer serves us, just like how Canyon split from Jordan, and there would be nothing this district could do about that. A taste of their own medicine. This struggling district would lose Skyline and Olympus, the only high schools above the state and district average in ELA, math, science, and graduation rate, as well as Cottonwood, every middle school and every elementary school that feeds those high schools. So take my advice, for my children's sake and this district's sake, losing this school erodes the local identity, would reduce our property values, and can weaken this community's engagement. Closing Eastwood would not just result in the district losing a top 10 Gold Star school, you would also be losing the top 10 Gold Star community that supports it.
So I'm just going to sit down. No, that was amazing. My name is Sarah, and I have 3 kids here at Eastwood. I am a native of this area. I went to Morningside, Wasatch, and Skyline. So I'm really invested in this area. I'm actually zoned for Morningside, and my kids should go to Morningside. And I love Morningside, it's a great school, but we chose Eastwood because of their strong academics and the STEM program here. I was in community council at Eastwood last year, and I sat with you and Julie Jackson, and I remember in a conversation you guys implored us, if you have creative solutions, please let us know. We have, through the amazing work of our team here, presented an amazing solution. Please, we implore you through your due diligence to at least look at it and consider it, because you asked us to bring creative solutions. That was my first comment. My next one is more about a safety issue at Oak Ridge. Oak Ridge was built in, I believe, the 1960s, around there, and it was built as a neighborhood walkable school. So as of right now, buses do not go up there. There's no busing route. It's in the middle of a residential neighborhood at a 4-way stop at an incline. I have heard from Oak Ridge parents that in the winter it is a disaster. Cars are sliding off of the roads. My question really is, if we combine, and according to your numbers, around almost 500 students there, what will the safety look like when we have buses going to a school that was not meant for busing? And I appreciate going up there in a bus, but I do believe a real-world actual simulation needs to be done. Not you guys in a bus on a Friday when there's no school. I don't think that's a real-world situation. And also, what is this gonna look like if I have to drive my kid there and it's not a walkable school for many families and there's buses trying to get out, almost 500 students and parents at a 4-way stop trying to get picked up, and let's say there's a snowstorm, like what has been done to address that? Because that right there makes me feel very concerned for my students. It's gonna be 500 kids trying to be picked up in a place that was not really meant for that.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, when schools were built, you're right, 50s and 60s especially, most people did walk, right? It's a different world, different time, you get that. And that's why I think referring to our pickup and drop-off areas or a lot of our properties aren't ideal. They're just not. Almost every school out there, again, because we do this a lot, has challenges that we have to work through. And some of those you don't know until you know, or until school starts, and you have to work through those. Now, as far as a bus, somebody asked me earlier about buses getting up there. Buses are honestly the least of our concern. They're designed for snow and things like that, and they have change if necessary, all of those issues. Now, how many cars versus how many people walk up there? We don't know for sure, but that's, again, we've done this several times, and typically, I can't remember, Ben, what was it? It was Oakwood a couple of years ago, where there's just unintended consequences and things you don't know. So it was 2 weeks after school started, we got the community together, the city, traffic engineers, and had to rework some plans. Is that possible? Absolutely. But that would be possible here, there, in a lot of places. And so, but yeah, that's.
Is there any plan for the traffic that would be on Oakview Drive? Or I guess my question is, has there really been any other like feasibility studies? Because what it feels like is it's like, this is our opinion, and as a parent, it feels like the question has been, can this be done, instead of should this be done?
When we talk to traffic engineers or consultants, what we typically hear is they'll say, yeah, you'll be glad to pay us and we'll come out and watch, but they're assuming a lot, again, because we don't know until how many parents drop off, how many people choose to carpool, how many people really choose to walk, all of those things. They don't know that until, quite frankly, school starts. And I'm not pretending that we have a crystal ball that tells us all of those things. I'm trying to be as honest and transparent on that issue as we can and say that we tackle those things and are used to tackling those things. And we work through them. We're hopeful that we will address them as they come up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Superintendent. Hi, Steve. Right. Good evening. Thanks for coming out. So I just have a pretty simple question. It feels, a lot of this feels, PAC study, all of these things kind of feel like you're doing a reverse regression on a decision that was already made. The land here in Eastwood is worth, the Salt Lake County values it at around $5 million. We all know that that's absolutely not the case. It would sell for much, much, much more. Are you, and here's my question, and I wrote it down because you guys have a tough job getting up here and talking, I understand, but I want to be as clear as possible. Can you, Mr. Superintendent, and Steve to some degree, go on record today as the Granite School District to say, and remember, we're all listening, and we're all going to hold this accountable in the future, to say that you have no knowledge on proposals, RFPs, architectural plans, discussions of any kind or commercial civic use or activity for this land. Can you say that today?
I can tell you that the only conversation I've had with Mill Creek City is the only conversation I've had about any of our school properties, and it was not specific to any school property except for closed school properties, that they want to collaborate on preserving open space, and I had that conversation with Mayor Silverstream.
So there's not gonna be a fire station built here?
I have not received any proposal.
There's no
I've never talked
architectural
to United
plans?
Fire Authority, I've never had any of those conversations.
You've never
That
seen
a
architectural
letter of
plans?
intent would have to be coming, and we're not gonna even consider selling property. Again, we'd have to go first to the municipality, right, under state law.
So again, just let me be clear, because I'm not that smart, I need to get things in writing and written and said a lot of times. I actually am pretty smart. No leasing, RFPs, proposals, architectural plans, discussion, nothing, you can say there's been none of that happen. So in 6 months, they break ground and build a fire station here, we can come back and talk about this.
If they wanted to build a fire station here, the first step in that process was first we would not have to have a school here, right?
Okay.
So we would never have a conversation about that until the school was closed.
But again, you are willing to say, you're to my question, you're going to
Can I
say
answer
no.
the question?
Yeah.
The first step in that process, that would be up to the board, right? At the end of the day, we would make a recommendation to the board. The first step is to get a letter of intent, right? So we would get a letter of intent to me. I would refer that to the real estate committee. I get their meeting notes. I'm not in that meeting. I've not seen any discussions on this topic or this school. And again, we would reject that because this is a school, a functioning school in operation right now. So let's say it did close, okay? Say it's a year from now and the school's been closed for a few months at that point in time, right? Say Unified Fire came to us and wanted to have that conversation. Would we have that conversation? Yes. Have we had that conversation? No. And are we interested in selling the property long-term? That's not the direction I've been given from the board.
What about leasing?
So there are no architectural plans for a fire station here in Eastwood?
If there are, I have not seen them, and Granite School District has not seen them.
Well, I believe we come to leasing, so leasing, none of that, we're all good, right?
We've had, well, I'm gonna go back to what our conversation, I'm going to tell you the conversation I had with Mayor Silverstream, because I wanna be honest, right?
I want you to be honest.
We would look at long-term solutions for preserving open space on this property, because
When
we
you
want
say open space, can you define open space for us? You mean
park space, use by the city long-term, so that we don't have to pay to maintain it, like we're doing at Spring Lane with Holiday City. We would consider all those options, but again, I can't guarantee that. I can't say that the district down the road won't do that. I have to work under the discretion of the board. The current direction I have is that we're not selling property.
Okay. Thank you.
No, I just said we're not selling property. And I explained, again, we are interested in maintaining open space and working with our municipal partners. I have no proposals in front of us at this point.
Thanks, Superintendent.
My name is Larry Gelwicks. I believe I met you, Mr. Horsley, Tuesday night. Thank you. I have two comments and then a very pointed question. My two comments are, first, I've heard a lot of discussion about the importance, particularly financially and class sizes, of coming into our Granite School District and, for me, Eastwood. I have 7 grandchildren at this school. My wife and I, my wife was the PTA president at Skyline. I've done volunteer work at Skyline. I've done volunteer work at Wasatch, and my wife and I have and are doing volunteer work here. And so, every crowd goes wild. All right. Anyway, of my 7 grandchildren, 4 live in the Salt Lake District. 3 live in the Granite District, but not within the Eastwood traditional boundary. Now, why did they come to Eastwood? Really for 2 reasons. First and foremost, the quality of the education here, which we have good schools in the district, but Eastwood is unmatched. We came here out of this district for education. Secondly, their cousins were going here. That was a big draw, all right? And so it's talking to my children, the 4 from Salt Lake District will not be coming if this school is closed. 4 students probably doesn't make a difference, but it's an accumulative effect, Mr. Horsley. The other 3 that live within the boundaries of Granite, but not within the boundaries of Eastwood, are undecided. They may end up attending a Granite school. Canyon Rim is a consideration. I don't know what they're going to do, but I know 4 will not be coming here. Now, my other comment has to do with the safety, which I think has been addressed here, and I appreciate what I've seen. I was part of the, for lack of a better term, the march on Friday. I understand you or others were invited. I also understand you have a very busy schedule, so that's not a criticism. But I wish that you could have been here. It is not the same as driving in a car or driving in a bus, particularly when there's no kids. I was down there with the children, walking, and even with adults, Mr. Horsley, kids were jumping into Wasatch during the peak commute period. They were jumping into bushes. They're kids. I have grave concerns about the safety. Now, will they all walk? No. Will some walk? Yes. Will many walk? Probably. And the response that I sense is that, well, there are other dangerous routes. That's a true statement. But it just pales as to be an excuse to, I mean, I think the walking ought to DQ the whole proposal in and of itself. It is now, if you would like to respond to that, fine. If not, I'll get to my question.
Sure, go ahead with your question.
All right,
and I'll come back to that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Horsley. The specific question was in the Tuesday presentation, there was a slide showing some advantages and disadvantages to Oak Ridge and some reasons maybe not to consider Eastwood. One of those slides listed the ADA, specifically the elevator at Oak Ridge. It is my understanding that some years ago, the district built or commissioned the elevator to be built, but not here. So this would tell me that the ADA with the ramps was deemed sufficient and satisfactory. Otherwise, you meaning the district, would have built an elevator right here. The cafeteria is below us. And so why was it put up there? To me, it was, forgive me, disingenuous. And it was to prove a point that was untrue. Oak Ridge has an advantage in the decision making because they are ADA compliant and they have an elevator. But the district chose not to put an elevator here, so they must have assumed that it was sufficient and safe. And so now we're saying, well, there's ramps here. Why didn't the district build an elevator here if the ramps now are considered insufficient?
Okay, excellent question. You're at 6 minutes now, and I want to make sure and I want to answer your question.
Good sir, you cut me off Tuesday night, one time after another. It is. And I'm trying to be very respectful. Right. The last thing I'll say is on the safety issue, pardon me, I want to say this with respect. The walking is pure insanity.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. And I'm sorry if you felt like I cut you off. I would never intentionally do that. I'm just following her rules, which says you each get 3 minutes, and you were already going up to 6.
Well, I'm the first one you called on that, and I'm a man.
You're true. Yes, it's true. I know she's keeping me to 3 minutes, and I want to make sure you get your question answered. So first and foremost, again, we reiterated this before. I would never expect a kid to walk from this neighborhood all the way over to Oak Ridge. And the expectation based on the transportation in the recommendation is that everybody north of Mill Creek would be able to access a bus. Okay, so that means, did I get that right? Okay, I'm just double checking his recommendation, right? So with respect to that, if you look at this map, the only kids that would then in turn have to walk, based on the map that you guys provided, would be these kids who are already actually pretty close to that boundary already. Is that fair to say?
If I understand you correctly, Mr. Horsley, all of this area will have a bus service?
They would have access to a bus.
Well, where do they pick up the bus?
We would have to base that, we change our routes year to year based on where kids live.
Where would you guess?
I would have our transportation director.
6-year-olds, particularly in the wintertime, walking to a pickup point that is yet undefined.
So you've got Mill Creek there, you can see those north neighborhoods who qualify for busing, but that's not gonna fill the bus. So in those situations, we go, we can add a stop here. Where do most of the kids live? We would add that stop. That changes year to year, right? So we would want to adjust that bus, that what's called a courtesy stop, to wherever those kids live. But based on the numbers of current kids in this area, we believe everybody north of Mill Creek would be able to access a bus and would not have to take that very dangerous route.
Response, I would hope the pickup point, which is critical and yet undefined, would be defined. Thank you, Mr. Horton.
Correct, thank you. Can I come back to your first question too as well? And I'm just gonna answer that question, you don't need to. I would agree that that would be disingenuous, but let me tell you how that process worked with respect to the proposals on what we call the secure vestibules, okay? Each school project, we received bond funds from the 2009 bond to be able to provide those, and then we prioritized additional capital funding after so many school security issues kept cropping up across the nation. We didn't want something like that to happen here. So we went to each of these schools under our previous director of facilities, who's no longer with Granite School District, and they prioritized those projects based on our ability to fund those. That was based on simply where the main entrance was. So it had nothing to do with ADA accessibility. Unfortunately at Oak Ridge, because the main entrance is down there, they built in that elevator as part of that secure vestibule.
My comment on the ADA, in the Tuesday presentation that you gentlemen put on at Skyline, the elevator was listed as an advantage to Oak Ridge, yet the district made the decision not to put one here to balance it out.
Correct.
So it must have been viewed satisfactorily some years ago.
And I can appreciate
and I
that.
guess now today it's not.
I'm just telling you that's a frank assessment from PAC, not necessarily ill intention. So thank you for that.
My name is Dana Bihari. I am an Eastwood alumni, and I have a comment that does not need a response. According to the Granite District website, in the 2023-24 school year, Eastwood ranked higher than Morningside in 3 out of 4 categories of growth. The categories being math, ELA, science, and the growth of the lowest 25% of students. Eastwood also ranked significantly higher than both Oak Ridge and Upland Terrace in all areas of growth stated above. In the growth of the lowest 25% of students, Morningside was at 67.5% growth, Oak Ridge had 75.7%, and Upland Terrace had 57%. Eastwood had 85.3% growth, nearly 10% higher than Oak Ridge, the next highest out of these 4 schools. If you have students' best interests in mind, why close the school that has incredible academics and preparation for high school, helping children grow up to become better people, students, and members of the community? We always say that all of these schools are great, and these are just snapshots of specific years, but Eastwood clearly has higher growth than other schools. During my time at Eastwood, I tested into the ALS program at Morningside Elementary and chose to remain at Eastwood due to the outstanding teachers, academics, and community. I am now about to graduate from Skyline High School, where I completed multiple advanced placement, IB, and concurrent enrollment classes. So I clearly got an amazing education that allowed me to get to where I am today. Eastwood has created so many amazing opportunities for myself and others. My family and I love this school as well as many other parents, families, and students who will not give up on having their voices heard and are here today to state that.
I know she didn't ask for a response, but we've actually had a couple of questions along this line, so I think it would be appropriate. I don't believe PAC's recommendation came in terms of which school was better, because in fact, if we look at the current data set for this current year, Oak Ridge is technically outperforming Eastwood. But if you take collectively, let's go ahead and pull it up. This is, if you go to USBE, the state's website, on their data gateway to compare schools, you throw in Eastwood, it will show you this slide. Okay? The percentage, this is the most recent data, okay? This isn't Granite's data, this is the state's data. We don't, correct. Correct, we don't get this shit. This is the most recent data. I did say that, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to mislead anybody. This is the most recent data set. With respect to that, that's going to change. And next year, Eastwood may be on top in one category or another category, right? The fact is, if we look at all of these schools, they are all in the top 10 in terms of performance here in the state of Utah. They are amazing schools. And just because Oak Ridge creeped ahead slightly does not diminish how amazing our teachers are here at Eastwood or what our parents are contributing towards the quality education here. I'm just pointing out the fact that this was not a basis of data, because we know we're sending kids from one quality school program, and it would be our hope and desire that those teachers, if this recommendation were to go forward, would want to go and follow those students over, and they would have the option to apply for those positions at Oak Ridge if this proposition was accepted by the board.
That one specific piece of data you did show did prove that Oak Ridge was higher in that one case, but in the cases that I have, which I unfortunately was not able to print out today, you can see right here that Eastwood Elementary. Eastwood Elementary had 76.1% achievement in ELA, 75.9% in mathematics, and 82.2% in science, along with the words, if you can see, high next to all of those for growth of the lowest 25% of students. If you go over to the other schools, such as Oak Ridge, yes, they're high, but they're not as high with 81.5, 78, etc. So the growth for, let's find one example. How about that?
Keep going, yeah, I'm fidgeting.
The growth of mathematics for Oak Ridge was for Eastwood was 73.3%, while the growth for Oak Ridge of math was 55%. So
It's a tough act to follow.
She went to Eastwood.
Good job. But actually, it set me up really well for the question that I have for you guys. So I want to ask a bigger picture question about the PAC in general. It seems to me that the approach has been really thinking very small about what's possible in the district. You're looking at numbers on paper, and you just said yourself that you're not looking at which schools are better.
That's not what I meant, so, sorry. Please don't take me out of context on
I
that.
think it was then clarified,
I'm saying
because you said
this
that
particular data set here, these schools are comparable. They're both performing at a high level.
Okay, but you did say the PAC was not taking into account which schools are better.
Yeah. It is typically not. I mean, when we're doing our study, if I go back to the things that we're looking at, the considerations, it's not this. The only time we would look at it is if there's a huge consistency issue between two schools that we're considering closing.
Okay.
So in this case, it's just not been a topic of conversation because we knew just this. They're both great schools.
So, okay, I can appreciate that. My question really is about where are the kids, in your analysis, where are the kids who have left Granite? Because the numbers that I see posted on the PAC's website are the kids that are within boundary, the kids that move to a different boundary, and you can see, where the kids are moving to, but
if we look at percentages of which schools retain their local kids and which schools have kids moving, that's not just a piece of that's just not a number. That means something. And what I haven't seen is anybody asking why. So for example, now let me give you a couple examples before you answer. This area of the Canyon Rim area has less than 50% retention of just the kids that are within Granite still. So fewer than 50% of the kids go to Morningside that are in this weird area near Canyon Rim. And we all know why that is, right? Because they're going to Canyon Rim. Why are we losing those kids to Canyon Rim?
Some are going to Canyon Rim, some are coming to Eastwood, some don't want to travel that far because it's an island, you have to go all the way down to Morningside, some go to Rosecrest. There are many.
No, but what you have published are the data on where kids are moving and of the ones that are still within Granite. So what I would like to see, if you can send it to us, is how many kids are in each one of these areas that are no longer within Granite. Because where I am, which is right down here, is also less than 50% of the kids
Correct.
are
So
within Granite.
just to explain your data set a little bit better.
It's not my data, this is your data. It's just
Correct.
on your website.
The data you're basing this on,
I made some
we
pie
don't
charts.
have that data and we are not permitted to have it. So you're giving us something that we would love to have access to, but charter schools are not required to provide that data to us, and the State Board of Education is not required to provide it to us.
Somebody has to have that data, because somebody has to be
Oh, the
told.
State Board of Education has it. They know how many kids are enrolled in Canyon Rim right now. We do not have access to that data, and they will not provide it to us.
That is really a huge problem for
Agreed.
and now analyzing.
So we can only base what we know on our projections of kids who have at one point or another been in Granite School District, and we know they're likely still there.
Yeah.
What we do, and we do actually review that data. The data mobility sets were not created for PAC. They were created to identify trends in open enrollment permittees and identifying if we have marketing challenges within respective schools so that we can target retention of students in those communities. But what we do see, and your data reflects that there,
It's not my
is
data,
that
it's the Granite, it's the district's data.
correct. But what it does show is that in higher socioeconomics, we see greater disparity in terms of open enrollment because our families generally do have more options than their local.
It's actually, so I'm here at Eastwood, not an Eastwood parent, but that's actually not true. So we could get into all that, but my biggest concern really is Morningside. This is, again, your data. This is Morningside's capacity, 600 kids. These are the number of kids at Morningside, 561 right now. 189 of the within boundary kids go to Morningside. Do you know how many within boundary kids we have?
I'd have to look up, but I think memory closer to 300.
That's right, 309. That means we have lost 120 kids to somewhere else in the district. And I know why that is, you know why that is. It's a big problem.
What do you think it is?
My neighbors go to other schools, go to Challenger, go to the Catholic school, go to other schools within Granite. So I know that it's way more than 120 kids. That puts Morningside at well over 700 kids. If we brought just those kids back, you cannot close Morningside. We need a place for those kids. I know there are 300 kids. Many of those would come back because they have been pushed out by programs. And I live within the boundary. I have one kid who's in a program. I have had one kid who's been in the traditional class. So I have seen what happens at Morningside. It's not a school you can close because there's that problem. That is a school, you cannot push it into Drake's. There is not enough space. That is, you have to account for 300 kids. They will not fit. They will be shoehorned into Drake's. It will become Crestview, and you know what happens at Crestview? My third grader looked at these numbers, and he was like, why are there fewer kids that actually go to Crestview from Crestview than
the total number of kids is fewer than the number of kids that live in that boundary. They're being pushed, they go elsewhere. You're looking at me like you.
Oh, I don't know if you were finished.
You have to look for the kids that are leaving. And you can't just say this is a population issue or a birth rate issue, because that's not the case. That's not why kids are leaving these schools. And we need to bring those kids back.
Okay, I will give you a couple of data points, and I would agree wholeheartedly that we have lost kids to charter schools and private schools. But what the state has already told us about that data is it's roughly 13,000 kids district-wide. The largest corridor of charter schools is on the west side along the 201 in the entire state. That's the greatest amount of charter schools per capita. We don't see a loss of charter schools with the exception of a handful of charter schools in this area. So when you take about 13,000 compared from our peak enrollment in 82,000 in the late 80s, early 90s, long before I was ever part of Granite School District, clearly there's more at play here than just loss to competition. Either way, you're right, and we want to get those kids back, and we need your help and want to partner why families aren't coming to one of the #1 schools in the state. And even of the 171 kids that live in this boundary that we do know of, why are only 125 coming here? Where are those 50, and why are they not coming to Eastwood? Because it is an amazing school.
But I can tell you, if you look at my map and my lovely
With
pie
respect,
charts-
you've got over 6 minutes, and I would like to just take 2 minutes to respond. So the reason is we see families choosing schools not just based on the quality of education, but primarily when we ask them why they are permitting other places, and we do surveys at the end of every semester and at the end of the school year on any family that left a school, we send them a survey, and our response rate's actually pretty good. It's like 35–40%. They're saying they're leaving for friends. They're going to go where their friends are going. And so, with respect to that data, the higher the socioeconomics, we generally see families going where their friends are going, my kid plays competitive baseball. He wanted to go to a high school that was 30 miles away, and I'm like, we're not doing that. We're going to your neighborhood local school. And unfortunately, many of our families in a school choice state are choosing to go to other places. Fortunately, in our area, there's lots of good options for them, but what we all need from everybody here is to go ask your neighbor why they're going to Challenger when they could be coming here or going to Morningside, right?
Because there is no room at Morningside and there aren't good options for lots of kids at Morningside because there's no space for it because we are full. And you know
But we
when
moved
you-
those programs there because we were losing traditional enrollment.
Thank you actually for mentioning going with your friends, because that is why Wasatch is full, because kids from where I live go with their friends. And so if you move those kids anywhere, if you move Morningside kids anywhere out of Morningside or out of the Churchill boundary, what is going to happen to those? What's going to happen to Churchill? What's going to happen to Wasatch? They're going to go with their friends. So thank you for making that point.
Okay, I have a couple questions that will have hopefully very brief answers. I just want to make sure I heard you right, that the person at the district who would approve an easement study or feasibility study is Steve Thompson?
To do something with our property?
Yes, to do something
If
with
we
the-
had interest on a closed property only, they would have to seek his permission to go. For instance, Ballet West wanted to come look at Sandburg Elementary.
Okay, so
They
let me
contact,
rephrase
that's a
the question.
closed school. We wouldn't let somebody come onto our property for a school that's open.
Okay, so so let me ask you this.
We shouldn't be allowing that.
Who in the district would approve an easement study or feasibility study?
So
for
what
the
do you mean
Eastwood
by
property?
easement study?
Easement study on this property to show whether it was.
So
feasible.
easements are determined when, like, UDOT needs to expand
Sure,
a crosswalk or
a
something.
feasibility study. Who
So
in
a
the
feasibility
district-
study, they would need to contact Steve Thompson to
Steve
gain
Thompson,
access to
and
the
has that
property.
been the same person the entire time that like, let's say the.
No, he's
last
only been
3
with the
years?
district for the last 2 years or so.
Okay, so
2
who was-
years, 3 years.
So who was the person before that?
His name was Keith Bradshaw.
Keith Bradshaw, Steve Thompson. Who did Steve Bradshaw and Keith Thompson and Keith Bradshaw report to? Who
They report to the business administrator, who is now Todd Hauber, who was here earlier. And prior to that, that. Todd's only been with us a little over 2 years, and it was Dave Garrett before that.
Would you expect to be made aware if that request had been made for the Eastwood property?
Yes, because I was part of real estate committee that entire time.
Okay, so you would be aware of that?
I would.
Okay, thank you. This second question is for Steve. Your suggestion to help make the walking route safer was to send a bus, but there are between 132 and 197 kids in the Eastwood boundary. That's 33 from Immigration Canyon. How are you planning to fit all of them on a bus that seats only 84 kids?
If there are students that are going to be bused, we're not going to cram 130 on one bus. If it takes 2 buses, it takes 2 buses. I'll just tell you that our numbers don't reflect the same numbers you're talking about. That everything north, we believe everything north of Mill Creek Canyon.
Kate, can you bring your chart up, please?
So, but remember, it's not just,
These are the numbers that are reflected on the map that you have given us.
okay, but it's not just who lives there, but then you have to remember.
It's the 132 students that are in the boundary that go to Eastwood.
Okay.
They would all want a bus, they can't walk. They don't
We
want
have tons of, yeah,
Well, I
we
just
have
wanna make
tons
sure
of,
that he knows
we have
what we're
tons
talking
of
about.
bus eligible students that do not take a bus. They just choose not to do that. So, but what I'm saying is if you choose to take it, and we told you things north are gonna get a bus, then I guess that takes 2 buses, right?
This is the 132 excludes the ones that are on the other side of Mill Creek Canyon, which I want to point out that the walking route from north of Mill Creek Canyon is just as dangerous as the walking route from south of Mill Creek Canyon. It still requires a walk along Wasatch or Jupiter. That picture of the kids walking in front of the Mack truck on Wasatch Boulevard was taken north of the canyon. Will you commit to the immigration families right now that you will get a bus, a separate bus for our elementary school children?
That's what I've been told, and that's what I've been saying, that immigration, if this happens, immigration has 1 bus that picks up immigration and comes straight to Oak Ridge.
Okay, so we're talking about
These
3
are
buses
separate
then?
buses.
Is
Yeah,
that right? So we
minimum
need
2
3
buses, yes, that's what I'm
Okay.
saying.
Last question, and maybe it's a multi-part question. You mentioned earlier that after hearing what we were talking about earlier, that you are considering some of the recommendations we made. I really appreciate that. I want to know what the process is for us to know when or if you're going to modify your recommendation so that we can make sure that we're part of it, or that we know what to do what the timeline is, basically.
The PAC, I go to board, I go back to the board on the 7th, Tuesday the 7th.
We'll be there.
Great. I highly doubt there will be adjustments between now and then. We're going through all the data, we're looking at these recommendations, we'll look at this map, all these stuff we talked about tonight. So I highly doubt. I believe it'll be mostly May 8th, but if you want to be there just to make sure, please. The next board meeting after that is November 18th, and that's the first reading. However, just like what we happened with ALC, where there was a proposal, then a significant enough adjustment, an email was sent out. So if we have adjustments we think are significant enough, if the PAC reviews things and said, okay, now we're considering, in your proposal, not saying this will happen, but if, for instance, the board says, yeah, we want to look closer or maybe consider having ALC here, that's significant, and we would have to try to message that out to the communities. So it is kind of unusual this year to go from October 7th to November 18th. It's just a weird quirk of the calendar. November, you never have first Tuesday because it's election day. The second Tuesday this time is Veterans Day. That pushes it out to the third Tuesday, which is the 18th. But it's just, in this case, maybe that helps because it gives us more time to look at things.
Are you open to having any of the people who participated in putting together the alternate recommendation?
I anticipate that we would come back and ask some additional questions and collaborate a little bit further on your map.
Thank you. Brian and I have spent a considerable amount of time crunching numbers.
Very good. I wanted to point out our good friend from the communications department, Luke Allen, who's recording this meeting for us. How soon do you think you'll be able to get a recording up on the website?
Tomorrow for sure.
Okay. So if you're worried about getting something, All of our meetings have been recorded. We posted all of those to the website in the interest of transparency. So just a highlight there.
Thank you. So I have a comment, so you'll get a break. But if you could go to slide number 7, please. I'm Kim Evison. I'm a parent of a kindergartner with a second grader.
Up like this? Okay, there we go. Yes, okay, so I'm Kim Evison. I'm a parent of a kindergartner, a second grader, and a 5th grader here at Eastwood. And so this graph makes me really sad for 2 reasons. The first reason is I'm a scientist and I hate it when the y-intercept doesn't intercept 0, and so I just get bothered by this every time. So I just have to point that out. The second reason, and the bigger reason why this makes me sad, is it shows a decline in public education, and in Granite School District in particular. And I really believe in Granite School District. It's one of the reasons why I came here. And I know this decline is not just because of the declining birth rate, because it doesn't entirely parallel it, and it's more rapid, even taking into account the y-intercept thing. It's more dramatic than just the declining birth rate would suggest. So I think it's undoubtedly, I know we don't have the exact numbers, but it's because kids are going to charter schools, private schools, Catholic schools, and homeschooling here in Utah. And I think we really need to strengthen Granite School District, work together to make it stronger. Now, how do we make it stronger? I think there's 2 ways. There's 2 things that I as a parent look for in the school, right? One is a strong community. And I think Eastwood has that, and a lot of schools in Granite School District have that. So I actually don't think we should close any schools. I think it's gonna make this hemorrhage worse. So I think that what we need to do is we need to get to not only stop the hemorrhage, but to reverse that trend and to get more students into these schools. Now, how do we do that? I think the other thing that parents look for, aside from their community and staying with their friends, is special programs, right? Everybody knows my kid is, all of our kids are the most special kids, right? And so we want them to go to a place that's special. And I think here we have a fantastic opportunity. We already have this STEM goal designation. Why not make this an even stronger STEM school? So there's already been one proposition to do that, one idea, which I think is great to bring the ALC kids here. My children were actually at Morningside for a year because we wanted to try out ALC, but they wanted to come back here because they're so into STEM, and STEM here is better than the ALC at Morningside, at least according to my 5th grader. In any case, I think we should make that even stronger. Why not? I mean, I don't know what's involved in making it a magnet school, but we have such an involved community here. I'm a scientist. I do a lot of work with, teaching students science at all different levels, not elementary school, that's not my forte, but I can certainly help with the science aspects of things, judging the science fairs, things like that. And I think all of us parents would be more than happy to get involved and work together with you to make Eastwood stronger and make Granite School District and make public schools stronger rather than making them weaker by closing a high-performing school. Thanks.
Thank you, sincerely. We want to work with you. We want to work with this community. We wouldn't be here tonight if we didn't want to make Eastwood the best it can be, if we didn't want to know and understand the questions and concerns. And what you said there is so powerful, and it is the key. And you guys, if there are any legislators here, because I'm going to rip on the legislature, okay? I'm just kidding, we know we're recording this, and I've been very vocal with my concerns. But what you have hit on is $80 million just 2 sessions ago committed to helping people who are already choosing homeschool and private school to stay out of public schools, right? We have a very adversarial legislature, and they continue to make things even more challenging and difficult for public schools. And in fact, I would dare say, because it's already public knowledge, they're challenging our tax increase because that we're trying to reduce class size in this district because we know it's important to our parents, and by virtue of the fact that they've created some stringent rules, the tax commission is denying our certified rate by virtue of the fact that although we had 2 separate meetings, a tax increase public hearing separate from the regular meeting, because it was listed on the same agenda, they're denying our certified tax rate. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds really frustrating. There's obviously a lot of challenges that you have to deal with that are, above my pay grade here. But I think that, we are willing to donate, all of our time, amongst the time that we've devoted to fighting this closure, it's thousands and thousands of dollars of our collective time.
I can see that.
And I would much prefer to donate my time to making Eastwood stronger than to fighting to keep it open. And so,
Thank you again.
so I pledge to donate the same amount of time next year to making Eastwood even better if you keep it open. Time, money, whatever. Thank you.
All right. Ben, I don't know if you remember me, Sandy Straley. How you doing? Anyway, I've been involved with Eastwood since 1995. I grew up in this area. I had all my three kids go to school. I was the PTA president. I held all the chairs in PTA. I worked with the Granite School District through reflections. In fact, you and Michael helped me with all my reflection presentations, and I appreciate that. I know Miss Nicole on the board. I know Chris on the board. So I'm here to keep this community and this school alive, because I put in many hours to keep this going. And I have seen the decline, but one great thing about Eastwood is at first you gave us the co-op program, and Eastwood made that work. And then you gave us the preschool program, and Eastwood made that work. And it filtered out into the rest of the elementary schools. And then you gave us the kindergarten academy. And we made that work because now all your elementary schools have the kindergarten academy. So my proposal is give us the gifted and talented along with the STEM, and you'll see this school fly. You really will. And I think that the proposal map that you had, you're going to have a lot of the kids filter into Olympus and Cottonwood, and you're not going to have, Skyline will hold its own because it's a brand new school. But the proposed map that you saw today, I think that's a real good alternative to keep our junior highs and our high schools populated. And so I'm just here to try and.
Thank you for all your dedicated service over the years. It's been a pleasure to work with you, and thank you for your commitment to this community.
Sure. And then I know about the traffic because I was playground duty, and then also I was the parking lot duty. And I know that.
And you're putting your life on the line too many times.
I know. So, I've been there, done that. And I know that the county did give us some money for the drive-through as well as the Granite School District. But it was my understanding that it was the Granite Granite Community Council that couldn't actually decide on the drive-through. So we had to give all the money back. Otherwise, we would have had a great pull-through.
Yeah, what ended up happening is because we couldn't find, we struggled to find a solution that was amenable to the community, and frankly, people were indicating that any solution that came off of this road right here to the south of us, of the campus, was unacceptable. But that was really the only way to enhance or extend that drive-through zone, the three options that the engineer gave that solution. And that wasn't a granite solution, that was, again, an independent traffic study commissioned through this grant money provided by the county. And so once there was no consensus and we really couldn't get buy-in from the community, there were people indicating you just can't get up that road at all in the wintertime, and that was just not a feasible option to be able to create that drive-through. So that was, I think, what killed that project in the end. And it was disappointing. I thought we had some good solutions here, and again, an independent traffic study engineer came up with the solutions. It would have been nice to see that drive-through get enhanced at that time when we had the resources available to us.
Yep, sure would have. Yeah. I know, if you give Eastwood those couple of programs, you'll see them take advantage and make it work.
Thank you again.
And I know Oak Ridge is a great school, and I'm sure they'll survive on their own too. So.
I will say this with respect to that, because you're bringing up a general piece of moving, and it's not just you. We've heard this in some other proposals and things that I know Pat considered because I asked the question when it was presented to me. was the whole notion of we just moved this program over to here. Yes, that increases our utilization rate of the school, which is one factor that we want to take into consideration, but it doesn't solve the split classes and the traditional enrollment. We would want to take into consideration moving ALC to a school location where, I know we're taking that into consideration as we evaluate that, where there's a strong traditional program, so that a parent whose kid might get tested out or isn't involved in ALC still has the ability to take their kid to one school and not two separate locations. So I know that's something that we've been taking into consideration as well.
All right, well, thanks for your time.
Did I turn it off? I'm just short. There we go. So I have a couple comments and then a question. Earlier you had stated that back in the 60s and 70s, schools were built for walkable, not busing, right? There's an exception. Because of Immigration Canyon, Eastwood was specifically built for buses. Just FYI. When the school year started, also in the video at the beginning, I think most everybody was here to watch that. My little one, the one with chocolate all over her face, who thinks all the teachers are beautiful. I made her. I made her. The rumor went around about Eastwood closing, and almost every day for about the first almost 3 months of school, she came home crying because her school was closing. It wasn't a rumor to her, it was reality, and that's heartbreaking for a parent, one. We couldn't shield her from that as parents because we didn't talk about it around her. It was all over the community. And I don't know if other parents had their children doing that, but as Eastwood alumni, my family, friends, the entire canyon, that's beyond this fight. That's turmoil. That's trauma that we've been putting up with for months now. Is my child, 6 years old, coming home every day, crying. There's my comment. Also, to echo this sweet young man's life after Eastwood and what that's produced, I was one of the grandchildren for concurrent enrollment. My mom took me out of high school early, and she, the Dean of Salt Lake Community College and Horizonte High School, with me, are the ones that made it possible for future students to get their associate degrees and high school diplomas at the same time. You're welcome. That is because of Eastwood. Just keep that in mind. My question is, at the last meeting I brought up what is going to happen to our SPED students. Here, the SPED students are treated so beautifully, and the schools that have been talked about, Upland Terrace is specific. It has self-contained EE, designation. But if you're going to have these bigger classrooms, which we have created the data and shown the data that they're going to be large, my neurodivergent child cannot thrive in that situation. So at the last meeting, I asked for information about these SPED students and what's going to happen.
I'll just tell you, SPED is different from other categories. SPED has very strict limitations on class sizes. That is another part of my job is space planning. So in other words, SPED department comes to me quite often and says, we have more students that qualify or have different needs in this area now, this area. Steve, I need you to go to that school and find another spot so we can expand that program. So it's just simply who qualifies by law. We accommodate, we provide the resources, that is what we do. So one way or the other, we have to make that happen.
Correct,
But it does not mean larger class sizes, is my point.
But just because a student has an IEP, for instance, if a student has ADHD, that does not qualify them to be in an EE classroom self-contained. That could just be resource, or that could be the mid-section where they need extra help, but they're not necessarily able to go into resource or self-contained. But if a classroom has 25, 27 students, this student is not going to get that one-on-one as a smaller school provides. So what I was asking at the last meeting, how is that going to be subsidized?
Can I ask
in
a
larger school?
question, a clarifying question?
Yes.
You seem to be under the impression that the class sizes would be different, so this would not be a student who would be in a unit, from what I understand, it'd be part of a traditional classroom space.
Right, because there's only one elementary school that provides a unit,
Correct.
and that's the E unit at Upland Terrace. So now we have all these other schools that if Eastwood were to close and our students stayed in Granite, unless they go to Upland Terrace, which they would need a specific IEP to be in that self-contained
Correct.
unit, they're in general population.
Right. But the class sizes, again, class size, well, you're highlighting what Steve was trying to express earlier, which is why that school capacity number is so hard to throw out a number and say, this is great, or this is a capacity, because there are these other variables that are required for us to take into consideration in terms of space. Put that aside for a moment.
But special ed has not specifically been highlighted at any point in this study.
Correct.
And I'm just asking that that be considered and talked about.
So I think to his point,
Yes.
we would want to visit, I think the best way to answer your question is to sit down with Dr. Day, our special education director who serves on PAC, but to have that conversation about how that student would be served and those individual respective needs and what we're required to do in that particular situation.
And why has that division not been present at any of this?
This is so unique, it's so unique and specific. We've tried to address SPED, but most of the time I'll refer, just like to Dr. Day, or in this case Tiffany Icon, who is now the elementary director, to reach out and ask, hey, you can ask what their current numbers are, what their class sizes are, what would be the plan going to other schools. That's just, it's so specific with laws and expectations for SPED that I'm always hesitant to discuss that, because you're right, IEPs are specific to the child, 504s are, so therefore it's very difficult to talk in generalities there.
But medically,
And,
since...
sorry, could I add to that?
Absolutely.
And to that point, it changes year to year, so we actually do move units around to make, based on where students are, so that they're not having to travel as far, and our population changes every year, right? And so we do actually see those units shift or change, or populations shift, and so again, it's very specific, and we would want to, I think the best approach for us would be to talk offline and set up a meeting with Dr. Day and Tiffany Iacona and speak to your specific concerns.
That would be wonderful, especially.
We'd be happy to facilitate that.
Medically, you know, first graders.
I think you have my
second
email
graders.
address. I think we communicated before. Okay.
No.
Do you know my email address?
I think it's public.
Yes, it is. I will tell it to you. It's BHORSLEY, so B Horsley at Granite Schools. All right. And if you send it to just communications or boundary, it'll get referred to me. Communications goes to Luke, and he'll make sure I get it. Does that work?
Do keep in mind that medically students, so kindergarten, first grade, second grade, sometimes in the third grade, they don't get diagnosed neurodivergent. So these students are being underrepresented.
Yes, and that's why it would be a good approach to have this conversation with Tiffany and Bryce, who have that expertise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good to see you.
You've seen my face so many times.
It's a great face.
Your smile. Yes, yeah, thank you for being here today. I just want to say on record that Morningside parents are strongly opposed to moving ALC, traditional, any program out of Morningside into Eastwood. I can cite 1,000 reasons why Morningside is better than Eastwood for 1,000 reasons. We have, I can say that we have better students, we are better in this or that respect, but I've never used those reasons to advocate closing Eastwood or moving Eastwood students to Morningside. So I'm very shocked, I'm very disturbed at these alternative proposals by some Eastwood parents or most Eastwood parents, pushing for, are we cattle or are we humans? Just as you want to save and protect your kids, we want to save and protect our kids. And so Eastwood does not have the right to propose these kind of movements of ALC students from Morningside. Send them there, send French ALC to Oak Ridge, all of this. This is unacceptable We want to stay where we are. We have a great ALC program at Morningside. I would not move the ALC out of Morningside at all. It is a central location. We are 90% full. It's working. Why break something when it is already working? If somebody does not like being in the ALC program, they are able to move easily into the thriving traditional program at Morningside. Why do you want to break all this up and move it somewhere else, to Eastwood or to another school? And Morningside is a central location. We are not comfortable going all the way north to Eastwood. So I just want to put all these things in the record that Morningside parents are strongly opposed to any recommendation or any plan, any alternative proposal to move to Eastwood. We're not comfortable with this. We are happy where we are, and we would appreciate that Morningside stays as is. We have a 90% utilization rate, central location. When our enrollment is stable or rising, we have great pickup and drop-off on all 3 sides, and we have 1,000 reasons why we have the strongest STEM program, despite not having a designation of gold or platinum. I mean, we would like to have a platinum designation, and Morningside would get there the fastest of all the area high schools, because we have the best students, the strongest students, and a lot of students come from Eastwood too. So with that, I would like to give back.
Thank you. And please know that we're planning on coming and doing a meeting with the Morningside parents again. We already did one with ALC.
And I want to repeat this, that Morningside, none of the Morningside parents have ever pushed for closing Eastwood and splitting Eastwood and bringing Eastwood to Morningside. So we would appreciate if Eastwood would extend us the same courtesy and respect that our kids. You cannot save your kids' trauma at the expense of my kids' trauma.
I can appreciate that concern. And going back to our
on its own merit, not at the expense of Morningside, and we would never do that to Eastwood. We love Eastwood, we sympathize with you, but we would never advocate for Morningside at the expense of Eastwood.
With respect to that, we had our previous commenter, and it kind of goes back to this challenge and difficulty. It's funny that there was a side-by-side analysis on, it's ironic, it's not funny. There was a side-by-side analysis in the presentation you gave us, which I can appreciate, of Salt Lake's process compared to Granite's process, because the only reason Salt Lake went through that process is because of legislative pressure. Right? There's absolutely the legislature hounding us in terms of this utilage. I empathize with that comment that, man, I don't want to close any schools. Nobody's excited or thrilled about any of this, but also recognizing the political pressures we're under. Brian, who ran that process for Salt Lake School District, actually came and met with Steve and I at the time. I was serving in the role of Chief of Staff at that time to walk through our process. So a little bit ironic there that
Try it. There we go. Sorry, I hit the button. Yeah, I consulted with Salt Lake District on that process and helped them through that process. It's just so you know we help each other that way. Go ahead.
All right. Even closer. All right, so Andy is going to be upset with me. Andy's talking to Jen. So I'm also a Morningside parent. There are at least 4 of us here. I think Jen and Anna and those of us who spent hours over this weekend talking about this proposal would like a little bit of respect from the people in this room, because there's a lot of Morningside parents that put a lot of our capital on the line to help make that chart. So if the snark from Eastwood could come down, I'd appreciate it, because we're actually really here to work with you guys. Andy has every right to feel the way he feels. He represents all of our families. So he leads our big chat. He is here representing all 3 of our programs. So let's just have a little respect for that. For Morningside, we have a community. We want our building as badly as you want ours. We are 87% full. We have, what, 1 first grade and 1 second grade class that are currently low enrollment. All of our other classes are full size. We have 1 split level class, and it's an anomaly. We have a DLI program with a wait list and an ALC program with a wait list. So you can understand our frustration that after all of our work, we are getting dismantled either by the PAC's recommendation or now by Eastwood's. So please have a little sympathy for the other families who are fighting for their neighborhood schools that our kids also walk to. So I want to say to you guys, it's probably the first time Steve has had to talk to me and not wanted to like crawl. So ALC kids also heard that they were being displaced and that their program was being cut in half. So when you tested in 3rd grade, you're guaranteed through 5th grade. And we got to watch our kids find out that not only were they gonna move schools, but half of them were probably gonna be displaced because Woodstock doesn't have space. So you're gonna move schools and you're gonna lose all your classmates. That's what our kids just went through. That's why we've been so vocal. So I understand the trauma. We're living it, okay? So a little empathy from everybody. So our kids are still homeless. ALC has been told we will not get reviewed for another year, but we are a homeless program. We've also been told how many schools don't want us. We got told Upland Terrace didn't want us. I don't know that that's true. But we get told routinely how unwanted we are as a program. And our kids are neurodivergent. We're pretty much a special ed program, and I think 5 states in the nation we are actually considered special ed.
Thank you.
So please understand what we're coming for as we advocate for our children who don't fit anywhere and apparently are unwanted. We are here tonight because we do believe that the STEM program has a tight alignment to the ALC program. Andy, I love you. Did he leave because he's mad? He might have. A lot of us think that, and we spend a lot of time on that. Sorry, I'm not going to stop there. We are also a special ed program, which would make Upland Terrace another logical location for us because they have a strong special ed program. Our biggest concern at this point is our children just went through this. We were told we were going to Woodstock, we were told we were getting cut in half, now we're being told we're under review. If we are moved, what is the guarantee that once the review is done, and if you take the 5% number, which cannot be 5% of tested, it's 5% of population, or the 6% of the DOE, we are underserving even within our East Side Area 5. So ignore Woodstock. We likely need 2 sections per grade for 3rd through 5th grade in order to actually meet what I hope and suspect the ALC review will come up with. So we cannot just be moved into a school like Woodstock or many others where there's only sections for like 3rd, 4th, and 5th. We will need 6 classrooms, 2/3, 2/4, and 2/5. We do not want to move out of Morningside at all until we are sure that where we are going is a real home. Our biggest concern is we get moved now to get out of Morningside. We do this study, we find out we need 6 classrooms, and a year from now we're moving our kids again. Our kids all moved, except in Boundary, like my son. The rest of them all moved after 2nd grade, right? So they did K through 2 in one elementary, they moved for 3rd grade. Our current 3rd graders are looking at moving again next year to get a review to then move again. If we come here, and what we had originally talked to Jen about, we believe Eastwood deserves to get rebuilt. We are a family, the ALC family, who believes in STEM and science. We believe in education. We are as advocate and loud as this group, and we love the Eastwood parents because they are as enthusiastic as we are. Is there an option to combine Eastwood and our traditional northern, so the northern Morningside traditional, which cannot please go to Rosecrest, and our ALC program, and rebuild Eastwood into the actual STEM hub it should be, based upon the fact that Eastwood is still #1 to get rebuilt, and allow us to attract talent back from where I live, which is right next to Canyon Rim, it's at the top of my street, and pull from Park City, because we believe if we had ALC and STEM together, and Eastwood together in a true STEM building, that we could pull from out of district. Both of our schools have high out of district pull rates. You have parents that drive for inclusion. You have parents that respect each other and want others there. Like, would you give us the opportunity to work together, and is there any way we could get some level of a promise that we could actually build a STEM school?
I'm trying to remember all your questions now.
Okay.
Because I want to answer them all. They were great questions.
So we would love, first of all, can ALC either be moved into some place where we are confident we will be able to fit after the study, or
Yes.
don't move until we have a study?
Well, I want to make sure that whatever decision we make does not displace our students, regardless of whether they're ALC students or Eastwood students or any other students, that they're given a permanent home. We would love to be able to do something that makes sure that the study and the outcome is a long-lasting solution, right? So that we don't ever have to do this again. Would y'all like that? Because I would.
That's not
right?
realistic, because hopefully we grow.
Right. To that end, you are wanted, by the way. You are absolutely wanted.
Oh, we are routinely told that.
I know,
Westside ALC
I want
needs
you.
us and that other schools don't want us.
Just know that we're trying to meet both of those needs. With, we want you. And by the way, we had considered that before. I know that that was one of the early recommendations that they analyzed as part of PAC. And again, the concern is if you just, let's just hypothetically say you move ALC here, or you move DLI to, say, Oak Ridge, then you're not solving the traditional challenges that we're seeing with the staffing problems, right?
Yeah.
So that's been the primary concern of PAC, but maybe, I'm just saying, I've been open. He can tell you this because we've already met several times since last Tuesday. I want to rerun all those numbers. And here's the thing, at the end of the day, if our families are happy, we're going to have to look at a closure, right? We have to do this, right? But at the end of the day, I want a solution that's least impactful and meets our families' needs. So if you guys are okay with having a fourth grade up here that has 36 in it right now, right? In the traditional program, I don't know. Okay, I'm talking about the fourth grade that has, right. So, but again, we have that situation happen regularly in these smaller school situations. It's not just, I'm just throwing a number from the recent population, right? So, yes, I would love to rebuild your school. Yes, they're both still slated for rebuild on that projection on gsdfuture.org. And we will continue that process and get it done as soon as possible. But at the same time, we did publish a plan and a strategy and approach. So if Eastwood were to remain open, then it is an excellent site for a rebuild. And again, you've made excellent points about its location as a magnet.
So again, we would just say if Eastwood wanted to move into Morningside while Eastwood was rebuilt, that would be fantastic. The other thing that I asked was the northern part of Morningside. I brought this up with you because that's my boundary, that's where I live. Sending us to Rosecrest is a nightmare. Like, please do not do that. That is about 26 kids. The number's at 40. I assumed ALC would be leaving. If ALC stays where they are, you have 26 kids in the northern part of Morningside that go to Rosecrest, which means about 5 per grade. So when they go into 6th grade, there's 5 little kiddos there who are gonna have to go enter Wasatch because we are still a Wasatch area. And all of their budgets
Under that
are gonna
proposal,
go
the current
to
proposal.
Churchill. So please do not send northern Morningside to Rosecrest. Send them to Eastwood if it's open, send them to Upland Terrace, but please do not do that to my neighborhood and to my kids.
I would say this with respect to that. I know that we're trying to maintain balances in those junior high feeders as well. And I'm sure that's why that was the recommendation, the way that was. But that's valid information and we'll take that into consideration.
Then route us to Olympus, then let us go. Like, or route us to Churchill rather, then let us go. Then you have to change, you said we're not changing junior high, but then northern Morningside. Right now they're at Wasatch, they would have to change to go to Churchill permanently. We'd have to move the whole.
Right. Okay, thank you. By the way, it's 10:50 and we're happy to stay here, but if you do need to get up early for work tomorrow, just shoot us an email and let's set up an appointment to listen to your concern at another time. Don't feel like you have to, the only chance you have to hear about this process is here and now, right? Okay, thank you.
I haven't had a chance to go to any of the other meetings, just due to my work.
Can you talk louder, please?
I've heard all about them. So I was just curious, have there been numbers shared for like long-term cost
Yes, they were on the slide deck, so you should be able to go on the website. The cost in ongoing maintenance is minimal because it's essentially the cost of the 3 full-time personnel that every school is required to have. Full-time custodian, full-time secretary, at least one, right? And a full-time principal. So, and then your utility costs, it generally adds up between what, $600 to $1 million, depending on the school size. So that is the ongoing cost savings to our budget, which is quite, I mean, frankly, is minimal. And so, again, we're looking at trying to find the best opportunities for students by maximizing resources, right? But at the same time, so that's not an overwhelming figure. The more accurate figure and cost savings would be the cost savings on rebuilding schools that we don't need to rebuild, right? That's a $40 million price tag.
But ideally, in the future, we'd be building more schools or rebuilding schools and getting more people into the schools.
Ideally.
Ideally, that
Yeah,
would be the plan.
you're right.
And was there a cost comparison per school of what that savings would be, depending on which school is closed?
How do you mean? Maybe I'm not understanding the question.
Is there a projection of how much would be saved by closing Driggs versus?
It's rough because it's a rough total on what the school rebuild, the essence of it is. It's roughly $40 million. But you don't know what that's the current figure as of today, right? 4 or 5 years from now, it's gonna be $45 million, right? There's this ongoing conservative cost estimate with inflation. It's roughly 10 to 20% a year. So yes, but it's very rough in that estimate. Did I answer your question? I don't know if I did.
Kind of. It's more of like having shared figures for each individual school of what it costs to maintain versus how much it's going to save by closing them.
Correct. So, no, we've not done a detailed analysis of this building's utility costs and how much those 3 FTE, those 3 full-time equivalent employees cost, because a more experienced principal like Mr. Graham, who's been around for a bit of time, he makes a little bit more money, his benefits cost a little bit more. He's a nice guy. We're not saying that he doesn't deserve every penny he gets, but compared to a brand new principal who's not gonna make as much money, we'd have to do that kind of analysis, and instead we just do a rough estimate of what the average 3 FTE cost and what the average utility cost is. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
Okay, so again, it's roughly 600,000 in savings to, some buildings are a little more energy efficient, some are not, right? I would love to rip the shutters off this building. I think it would make it look a little more attractive, right? But does that impact its utility costs and make it have to use the air conditioner a little bit more? That's what my energy folks tell me, and I'm like, dang it, because I would love to make the building a little bit more attractive, right? So have we done that detailed of analysis? No.
When you guys were sorry.
I can hear you. I don't know if they can. Yeah. And we want the camera to be able to hear you.
When you guys were starting the PAC study, how did you come to the conclusion that school closure was the best place to use the money for the budget?
I don't think we're closing schools to save money on that maintenance and operation budget. I think we're closing schools because we do believe consolidating populations will actually enhance opportunities for kids. And we know that it provides better supports for teachers.
Okay, well, we're on the subject of teachers. What is the plan for the teachers for the schools that do close?
They're under our negotiated agreement with our Teachers Association. They would go through a surplus process this next spring. They would have the opportunity to apply for openings in the area. Assuming that this recommendation goes through, they're obviously going to have openings based on the new student projection at Oak Ridge to maintain the class sizes that we would like. And so they would have the opportunity to apply for those positions over there. Or sometimes teachers take those opportunities to go to a different location. Maybe something's a little closer to home, and now that the school's no longer open, I'd rather go do that. So we would take their first place options and then support them in whatever they would like to do. Because because of our large teaching population and because we have so many openings a year, we've never had to riff or reduce our force and lay off or fire a teacher because of a school closure. We've always been able to find them a spot and retain their position.
That is comforting for me.
We want to take care of these great folks, and we want to make sure that they continue to serve not only the kids in this area, but they want to be part of the Granite School District.
Yeah, of course. And then just
Because these are all high-quality educators. For the record, she's the one who cut you off.
I know. I just have a couple of comments for consideration. We are a past Eastwood family who is now current ALC, who is double get fed, which is so done. So if we did do the Eastwood plan to have ALC move here, which I do not love that idea, like logistically speaking, how would that work? I mean, parking already is a bit of a nightmare. School drop-offs and pickups are wrong here.
It is, and I will tell you that it's my assumption, I'll let Steve address what the PAC's thinking on that was. That was probably the logistical challenges were probably, not the space of the actual building, but the fact that our drive-through and our parking situation is not ideal here was probably one of the challenges seen, besides the challenge with not addressing the traditional class size problem, if that makes sense. Did I say that right? Fair enough?
I just wanted to throw that out there.
Are you in line again?
I have one thing. Okay, you're the last, let's say you're the last one for tonight. Yeah.
3 times the charm.
It's me again, hi.
By the way, I love it when we get to this spot in the meeting. Everybody gets in a good mood after 10. I don't know what's going on, but
We're so loopy, we haven't had dinner.
we're here, we're working together, we're trying to hear each other and understand each other. Thank you for that.
Taking a deep breath and saying
Enjoying the beautiful view.
Yeah, at least we have the view.
The real solution here is a big, beautiful building on our big, beautiful land. And I just want to say that before I get to all the rest of it, because we have enough space for a school, for whatever else you might have planned. Maybe we can put a fire station there somewhere if it actually is in your.
If there was a school here, we don't have room for a fire station. And I will address that really quick. There are some inhibitions with this property, and I don't know the details of that, but I know that a portion of our campus is actually not able to be built upon because of the existing landfill that was here before. So, but I do believe we could rebuild on this campus, and we could actually create a drop-off zone that actually is helpful.
There's enough land, hopefully, that we could rebuild the school. Anyway, I want to start off to address the Morningside concerns because I do empathize with them. I almost chose Morningside because my kid tested into it. My kids tested into the GT programs, everything. We're very grateful, but one thing is that families choose Eastwood. Many of us choose Eastwood, and Morningside's parents also choose Eastwood. We have about 30 Penn students come to Eastwood. Anyway, all that to say, we choose Eastwood. We choose to stay here, and we're very passionate about it. So, going back to my time, I'll keep you on time. We have collectively spent weeks, months, hours of our professional time presenting you with data, outlining the procedural flaws with the PAC, and highlighting the profound success of Eastwood Elementary, as well as the surrounding elementaries. We've done this because we're passionate and we believe a terrible mistake is being made in these closure recommendations. And tonight, I want to set aside the language of opposition and instead invite you guys to collaborate with us. You know, and to be the cheesy yoga instructor, I'm so sorry, but I am. In the spirit of Gandhi, you know, it doesn't matter what mistakes you've made in the past. It doesn't matter what the data has shown, what your studies have shown. What matters, what our future depends on what we do today. And everyone who showed up today has shown up in a big way, really, really big way. And I want to thank everyone for all of the time that they put into all of this. We share the same fundamental goals of having excellence in our education, of having a successful public school system and district that families actively choose to be a part of. We want to solve the very real challenges of the changing demographics and the competition and the declining enrollment with you. Closing our most successful and innovative schools is not the solution. It is a surrender. It's an admission that the district is unable to leverage our greatest assets. We're here today to say, let us help you compete. You can see how much time we spent preparing the data, doing our own due diligence, countless professional hours. We've had attorneys, we've had judges, all sorts of statisticians, engineers, accountants, finance people, many people from all over collaborating in this solution because we care that much. And we do have the choice to go other places, but we want to collaborate. Instead of dismantling these programs or a school that has a gold STEM designation, or a school that is a proven destination for families, just a little more, I promise. Work with us to make it a district-wide magnet and a model for innovation that can be replicated throughout your district. You're already doing it on the west side. What is the plan to do this over here? Let us help you model that. We have shown that our community is strong, our engagement is high, and we can provide a lot more resources that we are willing to donate. Donating in our time, in our money, we can make pledges to help you build a strong community, to build this school, to build something that could change Granite School District. You guys are large. Use your mass, use your voice, use your lobbying power because you are such a big district. We can help you instead of using our energy to try to keep our small schools open. Look at this school. One of the things when I was coming here, I remember looking at how small the playground is, how small the school is, how dark the hallways is. But I said, there must be magic in these walls. There must be, it's a top school. And now that I'm here, I can attest, there is a lot of magic here. There's a magic that can't be rebuilt once you scatter our community, once you scatter our children. If you really put the children first, if you put their mental health first, if you put their education first, if you put their safety first. I did that walk. We walked that walk. We invited you guys to do it. It was alarming, just so you know. But anyways, that's beside all the point. Instead of, closing the schools, breaking the promise with the bond, which a lot of us voted for, work with us to honor our public trust, to regain our trust, and to show our community that Granite invests in proven success. Invest in our success. Please, I'm begging you, please. Instead of viewing our community as an obstacle, view us as your most passionate partners. We're parents, professionals, and taxpayers who are invested in the success of this public education system. That's why we choose it. So please, work with us. Build a bigger, beautiful school. Build a brighter future for Granite. Help us build it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I would echo your sentiment that everybody who came here tonight is committed to trying to do what's in the best interest of kids. And we're under a bit of a strain, but we wouldn't be here if we weren't interested in collaborating or understanding. So I would just reiterate the commitment I made before that we plan on visiting a little bit further on this proposal and working through that a little bit more. And by the way, I would have come to the walk thing. I was notified the night before, and unfortunately I had school visits already scheduled. But you do need to know I did reply. And you need to know that we have walked that. Steve and I always go for a stroll together. We try to walk like a kindergartner, as slow as we possibly can through some of those areas, because we want to personally know and understand that the recommendation and what those challenges look like. So please know that is something that we have and will do again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's like your girlfriend, you gotta get real close.
Appreciate the time, and good thing it's late on this side. Oh, turn it off, all right, I didn't have to get that close. So, you appreciate the time. We probably had the most recent decision for this. We chose the first week of school, or just before. Visited multiple ones in Granite. We actually got a spot in Canyon, and we were making the decision between Canyon and looking at all ratings. And ultimately, why we chose here versus Oak Ridge versus anywhere else was actually the STEM program, which I can see now why there's so much passion actually having since the first couple of weeks. We got a first grade, we got multiple kids in that class that are driving all across the valley specifically for the STEM schools. So I would encourage, if you're, my base assumption is most parents here seem to be very STEM oriented, is that you're trying to maximize the number of kids in Granite. It's really hard if you're looking at the population now. If you remove this one school, you are going to have a huge amount of attrition out of this program. Because, like for us, we get preference because we're inside the 2 mile radius for Canyon Rim. All these parents right here inside of Eastwood are going to be able to have preference into that side. It's not going to have the same base amount going over because you are going southbound on that side. So I think the recommendations in terms of creating a STEM magnet, that is what's wrong with people here. And I would say, I would encourage Granite to actually go out and recruit more heavily. If you look at what charter schools are doing, they're actually going out and recruiting like business credit, work in corporate strategy, like that's what you go. If you're actually looking and trying to defend as much of your territory as possible, you actually need boundaries on the outside, and you're actually attracting people from Salt Lake, from Park City, or from the East Bench side. So that would be my recommendation if you actually are trying to maximize the Granite people as is. Thanks.
Yes, you did it. I'm a bit late to the party. I'm actually from Morningside, but I have a lot of friends at Eastwood too. And I do believe Morningside parents are just as passionate, but we didn't realize that our school was under attack because it sounded like it wasn't until recently. But I'd really love to advocate for both schools. I love Eastwood too. I'm just wondering, are both schools, are they truly financially unsustainable as they are right now?
I don't think this isn't a discussion about financial sustainability. This is a discussion about maximizing opportunities in our scarce resources for kids' opportunities. And so we're under pressure and duress from the state legislature to make sure we're good using taxpayer dollars wisely. They don't want us rebuilding schools that we don't need. And so in their opinion, while there's been some data that was presented a little bit earlier that I wouldn't disagree with, and I've seen that data and research before, we're under the gun a little bit, right? In terms of how we're utilizing our budgets, increasing taxes, things of that nature, and at the same time reducing our funding and expecting us to turn to our own taxpayers to offset those decreases. So if we're under the gun, it's not specific to Morningside or Eastwood. It's about, we had a slide that showed if you combine 250 schools populations, what that looks like, right? And it was just a generic model that we've used in other places. It wasn't intended to be specific to this location, and a proposal to combine with Oak Ridge, right? And you're a Morningside parent, so I don't think you're going to be offended by this notion. But the idea was, and we've used this slide for years, because what it does is it shows how those economies of scale can be enhanced and improved. So if you go from a school community council with only a population of 250 kids to now doubling that population, essentially, you've now doubled your land trust budget, right? And as a school community council, you now have more members to be able to pull from to help volunteer. You've combined two very powerful PTA organizations. You have more volunteers at your disposal. There's just these economies of scale and less and reduced pressures on our school staff, because the same amount of responsibilities and committees fall on a school size of with 18 teachers as it would with a school of 9 teachers. Does that make sense?
I do understand economy of scale, but
So it's not necessarily specific
Right,
pressure on Morningside, if that makes sense.
Right, I'm just wondering, should we be reaching out to our legislators to
Yes.
tell them that efficiency is not our primary goal? I would like the power to be taken away from.
But I will tell you-
Parents, because there are other things, other benefits of these smaller schools that
Absolutely.
if the parents are happy, can't we just keep it healthy?
And I will be honest, we're not seeing some of the small school challenges in terms of student outcomes as we see in other places, okay? That is without a doubt, right? I think there's been plenty of data to show that here, but there still are benefits to consolidation that we want to take into consideration, not only for our students and families, but also for our staff and maximizing what talents they bring to the table and wearing them out a little bit, right? Now, that's not to say that somebody who's been at this school for a long time doesn't want to stay here. I'm not trying to put words in their mouth, but there's a reason the association supports these consolidations as well, right? Because they know the stress and the pressure on their members, right? So without putting words in somebody's mouth in particular, it's an underlying and undergirding ongoing pressure.
It just seems like the parents should be the one having the say and not the
Thank you.
legislators. So I have
Absolutely.
to
And
hope with that.
that's why we reduced class size at the K2 level this year, because that's what our parents wanted. And even though it cost us more money to do that, we felt justified in telling our legislators who were critical of that, this is what our families want, and they're willing to pay for it. So that's going to be in their best interest. I'm of the notion and the volition in terms of school choice, my personal philosophy, which does not matter because I do not avoid voting any of this, either at the legislature, but if our parents are happy, that should be it, right? That should be it. Now, we have some obligations to the legislature in terms of accountability. So if somebody's at an underperforming school and they're like, don't change our school staff, we're happy. I'm gonna tell them I have an obligation to make sure your kids are getting the best possible educational opportunities. It's not to say that that's not happening here. So if our families are happy, that is certainly something I personally take into consideration.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
That was a really long answer, I apologize. You just get up at 10:30 and get going, right? By the way, a huge shout out to our board members who have hung out with us and hung in here. They do not get paid nearly enough to stick around for a part-time gig like this, so we're grateful for them.
All right, last one. Okay, I have a couple little things, but make it as quick as I can. So, talking about time, I have spent the last 3 weeks working full-time and going to school full-time. This has also been my full-time job, plus some. I have gotten very little sleep, I'm a little delirious. But in my studies, I found this study from 2022 where there's 3 different options that were presented to the board. And seeing the transition from this to, I mean, I haven't opened all of them, so I don't know all of what was in them, how in depth it was, but I just wanted to know what changed from doing this type of recommendation versus the one that I know from last year was different. The website doesn't show anything before 2022, so I can't see anything further than that, but that's my first.
Okay. Every year's a little different. You're right. You look at this one, there were more options. We were asked by the board to provide more options because early on there were up to at least 3 school closures in this area and multiple other program changes. So
So it was in a lot of ways a larger study with more impact for more students. We don't always do that. In fact, I think this was probably the most options we had used in most years. We've tried both ways, quite frankly. If you'd see some years if we start with all of these really early, then people say, well, narrow it down for us quicker because we need to get more detailed and give us one or two options. And then when we tried that, they said, well, now we want more options because it doesn't give us enough information. So we're trying to thread that needle a little bit. But the quick answer is, the not so quick answer is, every study is different. And this year we came out with one set of recommendations, but yet now we have, like I said, longer, for the most part, to consider these and to make changes to this one set of recommendations.
No.
Very briefly, and this was brought up at the other meetings, these are stressful. And so we do try to come out with recommendations as soon as possible. We do try to narrow the scope of the study as quickly as possible to what we feel are the strongest recommendations. In this particular case, there was a lot more complexities in terms of shifting programs and where those schools could go, and we were looking at multiple closures. So it was just a little bit unique, but again, if we'd done something similar here, I don't want to be disingenuous in what a recommendation looks like. All three of these recommendations were actually viable. I don't know how viable providing multiple recommendations would be. It might appear to just be disingenuous. Does that make sense?
And cause more stress for
Yeah.
I have a letter to read that was given to me. See, this is from Shawnee Hayes. Dear administrators and board members, on Monday, September 29th, I listened to a broadcast on NPR called The Daily, which is powered by New York Times journalism.
I think I've heard that one, about a 10, 11 minute. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
The broadcast essentially pointed to the fact that while a generation of American students have been told that a computer science degree would yield a well-paying job, that may no longer be the case. I can say that's not the case because my husband has that, and it's been tough to find work in that field. Students who are now being recruited are the ones who have been trained in AI coding after, and then gave the link, I'll give this to you after. The current presence of AI in the world suggests an idea for keeping Eastwood Elementary open. Add an AI element to the technology component of the Gold STEM school status that Eastwood already has. If parents and students knew that students could begin to understand AI coding at Eastwood Elementary, I think that would be a magnet for student enrollment, especially if the new offerings was well promoted. The daily broadcast also mentioned that both Microsoft and Google are offering grants to schools to help them implement education in AI coding. Granite School District has a good grant writer. Perhaps AI could be added to the curriculum without a financial investment. I'm sure that proposing the closure of any Granite School District school is painful for all, Granite School District and the community of people who highly value their neighborhood school. But I am also sure that if a school could be saved by the prospect of a magnetic new program, it would be a win-win for Granite School District and the community. I think this idea merits exploration. Please pause your closure process while you consider innovative ideas for increasing school population. Cordially, Shawnee Hayes.
Thank you.
Two more things and I'm done. You guys can go. So something I did want to bring up is about this parking lot situation. So.
The driveway, how hard is it? Let's like move on. Go driveway. Let her speak. I'm sorry. I don't mean for you. I just meant just answer the problem and say we'll build you guys a driveway. Because it's not a big deal.
Well, so I know that when I went to school here, we had a similar situation, if I'm thinking correctly, that we had to back up in front of the cafeteria. It was a nightmare. It sucked, but we got it fixed, and now we can go around. It's great. But I do know that once upon a time, within the past few years, we were told that we were going to be getting a new parking lot situation with the 2022 security like updates. That was supposed to happen at that point. That study wasn't in 2022. That traffic study that you're talking about was 9 years ago, because all of the research that I've done, I saw that, I watched the video.
I would just say this, none of our secure vestibule projects have included any sort of driveway enhancements, so I don't know where that information would have come from. I'm not saying it didn't happen or somebody had a rumor, I'm just saying those are two separate pots of money and budgets within Granite School Districts.
So it was part of the remodel originally. It was supposed to be something that was included in that, but apparent that it was the first study about the driveway. But we were told, and this is coming from a parent that was there at that time, that it was we weren't going to do it then because it was going to happen in the rebuild.
Well, again, I would just say, I've never heard that before, and that's okay. That's not to say that somebody didn't get that impression or heard that conversation. We just have not done any sort of driveway enhancement. There's a separate pot of money specific for driveway and drive-through safety and enhancements of parking lots that is separate from the secure vestibule funds that we put aside for that project.
I gave you my question because I couldn't get in line because Steve cut me off.
Sure.
No, when the original study was done about the land grant, or the money that was given, the grant for fixing the pull-through. Yeah, for fixing the pull-through.
The county money.
Yes, and you said they couldn't come to a conclusion, so we lost the money for it.
Correct.
But a parent during that time was part of this conversation, said that it was tabled because the district said we're going to address that when we rebuild the school.
The assumption, well, you have to build a new drive-through when you're building a new school.
Right, but the reason they were comfortable tabling it.
I do remember that conversation.
Because it was going to be part of the rebuild. So I guess the question now is, it sounds like what you're saying is that we didn't get that pull-through because you couldn't come up with a good solution, the community didn't want that solution. But it sounds like you're missing that piece where you also said, let's just table it for now, since let's not continue the conversation because we're going to rebuild the school.
I think both can be true at the same time. I don't think it's an either or. So with due respect, I think we made that conclusion because we couldn't get consensus from the community on what that drive-through would look like, and so the county pulled the funds.
But do you think that we would have fought harder for actually getting a solution had we known that, hey, years down the road, you're gonna pull it from us and now we're not gonna build your school? Like maybe, I think there was.
If I'd known that, I would have said it.
Well, I know, but so that, it's hard to hold that against us then, when there's a guarantee that it will be rebuilt. There's, again, talking about keeping it in context, the context here is that it was tabled because it was going to be, because the building was going to be built.
And if this recommendation doesn't go through, that would still be the case, right? And by the way, it still would be anyway, because we've not removed, if you look at GSD Future, we've not taken off any projects off the table yet. And we won't do so, we can't do so without board approval. And they've told us to leave them all on until and we'll cross those bridges when we come to them and see if we need to rebuild them at that time. The idea is that we could potentially rebuild some of these schools and actually shift other school projects over potentially, and that's why the board wants the latitude to be able to do that. So for instance, when Sandburg was closed in West Valley, those kids primarily shifted over a small segment to Hunter Elementary, but most of them went over to Jacqueline Elementary. And the idea is when Sandburg potentially comes up, would we choose, instead of foregoing that project, is Jacqueline in enough of a situation that we just rebuild Sandburg at that time like it was originally scheduled and then rename the school altogether? The board is keeping its options open. That's all that means. So my point is that Eastwood, if it does close, is still gonna stay on that list. And when it comes up for rebuild on that order, will be considered for rebuild at that time. And I would remind you that Eastwood is on the list prior to Oak Ridge, right?
That's the original one.
Correct, and if you go to gsdfuture.org, it's the same list with the extended time due to the inflationary increases due to the 2020 COVID
Yeah.
all that construction crap. Yeah.
Well, I think the point I'm trying to make is that it feels like the district is making these decisions about not putting an elevator in and not using the money for pull-through, and now it's kind of being, like you're making those decisions, but now you're using them as reasons against moving students here as opposed to us moving somewhere else. And so
I
it
can
feels
see
a
that.
little bit like,
I'm sorry for that. I don't think that's our intent.
but when you use those as two
But drive-through safety is a primary concern, and the reason the county wanted to give us funds for this project is because it is one of our worst drop-off zones in the entire district.
With those
Morningside's up there with it too, right?
but again, it's all anecdotal.
You guys, that is so bad. I feel so bad every time I go up there. Yeah, but your neighbors, we hear from your neighbors all the time.
Really content with our drop-off situation.
And then we had that kid get hit trying to cross the road because mom dropped him off on the far side of the road and made him run across. No, that happened 2 or 3 years ago. It's bad. It's a bad drop-off either way, right?
You keep telling parents how the drop-off goes. You did this to them earlier when they.
It is so much better than any other.
But I didn't mean to cut you off on the point you're making,
no,
and I empathize with that point.
Yeah, it's hard when two of the main bullet points are things that the district had control over and chose not to do, and now it's their points against us, and so that feels a little bit unfair.
Well, I would push back just a little bit, and it's not that the district chose not to do that, is that the county pulled back the funds when.
Partially because the district said that we would rebuild anyway, so let's not.
No, that's not why they pulled back the funds.
Well, that's
They
the
pulled back the
conversation.
funds. They pulled back the funds because the community council up here couldn't decide on one of the 3 options that was provided by the traffic engineer. They didn't like any of the options because they all came off of this south end. And that was the only way we could extend a true drop-off zone. So you had to have a lengthy drop-off, and because of the elevation, you guys know what it looks like out here on the south end, right? That was the options that the engineer provided in terms of the grading and those other pieces. So that was not a Granite School District choice. We don't have control over Salt Lake County's grant decision process. So when they pulled back the funds, we said, okay, we'll address this when we rebuild the school, which is slated for such and such date.
I just also want to say, just for the record, that Eastwood we have no problem with our drop-off and pickup. I don't know if you say you've been there, it doesn't really take all that long. I mean, cars still get there very quickly, so.
Well, I would go back.
Perfect, but it's also, but you have to admit that if you're going to say that that's something against us, you have to admit that that's also a point against Oak Ridge, and they do not have a good situation either. So to use it only as a bullet point against Eastwood feels unfair.
Fair enough. I can see that. I would just reiterate his point too to that is it's not horrific now. It has been modified and improved, right, with district resources. But when we start having 500 families come here or 500 students' families come here, we're going to have to make some adjustments, right?
We've done it before. We did it in worse conditions, and it was.
I would say this with respect to that: more families than ever drive their kids to school. And 20 years ago, even 10, 15 years ago, when this school had primarily walking families, it was not as big of an issue as it is even now, even with only 225, 226 families, when most of those families are driving their kids to school.
Yeah, but the point is that both Oak Ridge and Eastwood would have to have that change, so it shouldn't be held as anything that you guys.
And agreed, I said fair point. Yeah.
I have one more thing I'm trying. I just want to show, and then we're done. I can just send this to you guys, but I have been doing all of the videos and stuff. That video at the beginning. I also did a combined one of the walk that I would really implore you guys to watch. I'm happy to send it.
You can send us those videos. We're happy to watch it.
That's fine. I would really recommend.
I actually saw some other news stations coverage of this already too, by the way.
Well, but this is
your montage?
Yeah, so I montaged all of the.
Well, I would not want to denigrate your creativity. Let's make sure we get it that way.
I will send it to you guys, but I would say it's really scary. And at the end of it, my 8-year-old, the clip because she was so scared about it.
And I would agree with that, and I would just again reiterate that under our plan, our proposal, yeah. Sure. Correct. Hey, thank you everybody for coming and participating tonight. It's good to collaborate with you, and we look forward to some additional conversations to perpetuate that.
Thank you, good night.